p.m. The meeting to order. If you would all rise while Councilman Smart leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, I'd like to make an announcement that our town clerk, Byron Rowley, has been in the local hospital for a while, undergoing some tests. We aren't sure exactly what his problem is. He's been experiencing some unbalance and maybe inner ear, we don't know. He's undergoing more tests tonight, will be going on tomorrow. In the meantime, our deputy town clerk, Pat Kerfing, has been filling in for him for the past approximately month, has been doing a superlative job. I want to thank her. She is doing things that only Byron, who did these things every day, completed his reports every month right on time. But all that information was in Byron's head, and so Pat's been doing a very good job of digging things out, completing reports, and with a lot of help too, and the help is appreciated too, Pat. Will you call the roll?
Councilman Ridgway?
Here.
Councilman Rose?
Here.
Councilwoman Smart? Here. Councilman Warner?
Here.
President Byron?
Here. The first item on the agenda is resolution number 93-93. I will move that the minutes of the May 20, 1993 regular meeting, having been distributed, be approved without reading. Do I hear a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Yes.
Page 3, resolution number 93-88. The last sentence says, Councilman Rose said he felt this was no place to appoint a politician to that board, referring to the grievance board of review. What I actually said was that there was no place for a politician on the grievance board of review. I'd like that corrected, if I could, please.
Would you poll the council, please?
Councilman Ridgway?
Aye.
Councilman Rose?
No.
Councilman Smart?
Aye.
Councilman Warner?
No.
President Byron?
Aye. Resolution number 93-94.
I would move that vouchers number 166 through 204 in the amount of $43,609.53 general fund, and vouchers number 132 through 136 and 138 through 160 in the amount of $6,912.10 highway fund, having been audited, be approved, and the supervisor authorized to pay same from funds available.
I will second it. Any discussion? Pat, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway?
Aye.
Councilman Rose?
Aye only to the bills that I signed. One of the bills I didn't sign was for Greens upholstery for the vertical blinds. They look very nice, but I don't think we can afford it with the taxes going up and everything else. I think this was an expenditure we could have done without.
Councilman Smart?
Aye.
Councilman Warner?
Aye to the bills that I signed.
Supervisor Byron?
Aye. The next item on the agenda, communications. I have several. The first involves a form letter from the Internal Revenue Service, and I will read my reply. I think government is so big that it's getting ridiculous. Gentlemen, this is my reply to the IRS. Gentlemen, the enclosed Form 941 indicates that the federal employment tax for the subject period is $35,277 and remember the 73 cents. And that the town of Volney has remitted $35,277.70, an underpayment of 3 cents. I can readily assure you that our town's bookkeeper didn't knowingly attempt to stiff the United States of America out of 3 cents, especially with the shape of our country's finances. Further, had you notified us that non-payment of this minuscule amount would result in a penalty of $169.44, we would have promptly remitted the 3 cents. I would hope that common sense coupled with the size of the underpayment will cause you to reconsider your penalty. The second item under communications is a letter from Bill Crumpton, our constable, and prompts resolution number 93-97. To the Volney Town Clerk and Volney Town Board, I have to resign my position as the Volney Town Constable effective as of June 1, 1993. Hammermill Paper Company is sending us to school for different trades for approximately 20 hours a week, Monday through Thursday. With the school, I am no longer able to meet my obligations as constable. I'm sorry for this inconvenience. The next is a letter from New Channels, dated June 7th. Dear New Channels franchise official, on June 21, New Channels will be adjusting its rates for cable television service. As you know, Congress passed legislation re-regulating cable television last October. The FCC has been releasing regulations for the past several months and just issued its 574-page document outlining rate re-regulation. We have been spending countless hours working through that complex document and making rate calculations based on its worksheets, formulas, and tables. We are constantly getting clarifications from the FCC. Therefore, we do not expect to announce our new rate structure before the FCC imposed deadline date of June 21. On that date, some subscribers will see an overall decrease in their total monthly cable bill, while other subscribers will see an increase in their rates for specific levels of service. Those subscribers with extra equipment and or additional outlets will see a reduction in the rates for those items. Those new rates have yet to be determined. Subscribers won't see the rate adjustments in their bills until late July, when we send out our August billing, and those rates will be retroactive to June 21. I won't read any more. It was signed Rodney Moss, Systems Manager, New Channels Cable Television. We have a notice of claim recently received from Lisa A. Avery. I understand she lives in the city of Fulton. Please take notice that I, Lisa A. Avery, pursuant to the statutes in such cases made and provided, do hereby claim and demand of and from the town of Volney damages and certain injuries sustained by me on or about the 6th day of March 1993 by and through the negligence of the town of Volney, their officials, agents, servants, and employees in that on or about said mentioned date while I was operating my motor vehicle I was seriously injured as a result of the negligence and omissions of the agents, servants, and employees of the town of Volney, which, as a result of said negligent acts and omissions, caused me to sustain serious injuries to my body and person. Upon information and belief, my injuries will be permanent. This accident was caused wholly and solely through the negligence on the part of the town of Volney and county of Oswego, and the highway that I was operating my motor vehicle on was not properly maintained, it was not properly sanded and salted, thereby creating a dangerous and icy road, which caused the motor vehicle in which I was operating to leave the road after sliding on an icy patch and causing my vehicle to become airborne. As a result thereof, the motor vehicle struck a utility pole and a barn, causing severe damage to the motor vehicle that I was operating, and as a result thereof, causing severe personal injuries to me as a result of there not being adequate sand and salt or other materials on the road to prevent the accumulation of ice and snow, and there were further mounds of snow along the road. The roadway known as Silk Road, where the accident occurred, in which I sustained severe personal injuries, should have been properly maintained with adequate amounts of sand and salt or other materials applied to the road so that ice would not accumulate and make the road slippery, and the mounds of snow should have been removed from the sides of the road and roadway so that the motor vehicle in which I was operating would not have become airborne and caused to strike the utility pole and barn, causing me to sustain severe personal injuries I won't read anymore. On June 2 of this, there was a luncheon meeting, the monthly luncheon meeting of the Volney senior citizens, with 73 members present. Bernie Macbeth, George Rookie, and Ray Furlong, officers of the VFW, Post 569, were in attendance, as well as Gold Star Mother Bernadette Zufeld, who is also a member of the Volney Seniors. Commander of Pup Tent number 48, George Rookie, on behalf of the Cooties, presented a wheelchair to the seniors for the use of members who may need it while attending meetings. May O'Donnell, a member of the Cooties Auxiliary and member of the Volney Seniors, accepted the donation for the seniors. I would like to acknowledge the town of Volney's thanks to the VFW and Pup Tent number 48 for the donation of the wheelchair. There is an appeal by the American Red Cross for the for funds to replace their funds from the recent flood emergency. I imagine that many of you have received that letter, so I will not will read it other than to state I know their coffers, their funds are severely depleted from this recent emergency, and that they did a lot of beneficial work in providing coffee and other services to those who were in need. And your donation can be made in person or by mail to the Oswego County chapter of the American Red Cross in Oswego, New York. Their address is in the telephone book. I did receive today a communication from Cynthia Tolberg, and each town board member received the same communication. Dear town board members, despite the attitude of members of the board of the community, we do not consider this a closed issue. I know she is referring to the Cellular One Tower. You will find attached copies of a letter from our attorney discussing vested rights and when a moratorium can and should be enacted. We will pursue our opposition to a siting for Pierce Drive with the planning board, as is legal and proper procedure. We will also continue our efforts to provide Volney with updated zoning to protect our community as a whole. We are sincere in this effort and believe that you, as a board, cannot ignore your responsibility to this community. Sincerely, Cynthia Tolberg. The last item under communications, Howard Rose and I have been communicating back and forth relative to his desire for a hearing or meeting with officials concerning the Silk Road landfill. I will not read these communications. However, I do want to report that I've talked with Bill Buck, who is communicating with John Tierney and Don Morey, and that there will be, within the next month, a full report regarding the Silk Road landfill. It will be a formal report to come out within the next month, and as soon as it's available, I will make it available to Mr. Rose and anybody else.
That wasn't my request, Mr. McFarland. My request was to have a meeting with them. I don't want to report. I want to ask questions. And I can't ask questions if they're not available to do that. And I think this board should be asking questions. So are they denying the request for a meeting, or?
No, I feel a meeting with a report imminent is unnecessary, Howard.
I don't think so. It's been a long time, Mr. McFarland, and I think we need to address that issue. And the report is only going to state the issue as they see it. And I would like other people involved in this, the DEC and maybe the EPA, and also this board. I think that's the only way to get anything resolved with it, because it's been a long time since that thing's been being looked into and nothing's happening. So I think it's our duty as a town board to have that meeting, and I would still like it.
All right.
If you'd like me to request it, I'll do so.
Please do so.
Fine.
The next order of business are committee reports. The first one is assessors. I do not see Fay Shanford here. Claudia, do you have a report?
Yes, a couple different things. Fay had received a letter from the state of New York saying that our application for reimbursement for data collection, there were things that were missing. He went over this with the people from Assessment Services, and all of these things had been sent in the first time. Apparently, it's similar to when you send in a tax return and then they try to tell you later that you didn't send all the papers, but you had. So some of these papers have to be sent twice, but they have already been done, and so they're just being forwarded on so we can hopefully get the money back. The other thing is, people were concerned about exactly what we're going to do from this point on with the data collected. Fay has been available since grievance day to meet and get things going. However, Janet LaSalle and Chuck Sessler have not. He was able to reach Janet LaSalle, and she has obligations to other towns until after June 21st. And hopefully, Chuck Sessler was out of town working on other projects, that at the same time Janet will become available. Hopefully he will be back from these projects, and we can have a meeting and find out what all of our options are so we can get back to the town and let them know what's going on.
Thank you very much, Claudia. The next planning board, Kevin Conley, chairman.
Our next meeting is will be next Tuesday on June 15th. I recently attended an Oswego County Planning Federation on May 25th. And at that meeting, there was some interesting points brought up regarding changes in town law, which will be taking place effective July 1st. One thing I'd like to mention, just for the people here, we had Bruce Stillman at this Planning Federation meeting, and one point he brought up, which I think would be of interest, and it's been brought out before by some planning board members, Bill for one, is that when we approve a subdivision, which, and there's people here probably we've approved subdivisions before, we, as a town representative, are proclaiming that that subdivision is thereby habitable. We are in essence saying that if somebody buys land in this subdivision which we approve, that you can use this land to put a house on, and that it should be able to sustain that house. So for the interest of people who come before us and consider that maybe if we request that you go to the county health department for an approval before we approve your subdivision, or if you do deep hole tests on your property to verify the presence of potable water, I just want you to understand that we as a planning board, when we give you that approval, are taking the responsibility on the town of saying that, yes, somebody can buy that land and build on it and should not have any major problems. And if they do, they may have the ability to come back on the town because we therefore approved it. So I just wanted to bring that point out. That's why we ask for certain information. That's why we ask you to go before the county and get approval. And under that, we have that responsibility. I'd also like to just bring out real quickly some other things that were brought out on town law, and what I'll do is I'll make a copy of this and leave it in your boxes. It covers the areas. A lot of these put into writing what is already known, but for example, town board members are ineligible to serve on planning boards and zoning boards. While you're on a town board, you are ineligible to serve on planning boards and zoning boards. You have the ability to increase membership on a planning board or a zoning board to 7 if you care to, or if a board had 7, you could decrease it to 5. No person shall be disqualified from serving as a member of the town planning board by reason of serving as a member of a village or a county planning board. So, for example, we have a member who serves on 2, that's perfectly acceptable. This was something that came up last night at a meeting I attended. Application for area variance. Notwithstanding any provision of law to the contrary, where a proposed site plan contains one or more features which do not comply with zoning regulations, application may be made to the Zoning Board of Appeals for an area variance pursuant to section of this article without the necessity of a decision or determination of an administrative official charged with the enforcement of zoning regulations. Claudia, you were at the meeting, so you know what that refers to. In essence, that gives somebody, if they come before us for site plan approval, but as part of their site plan approval, they may need a variance, they can then go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the variance. They don't necessarily have to go back to the code enforcement officer, get a building permit, have the building permit denied, and then go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. But that doesn't take effect until July 1st, though. But that's also true for, I believe, site plan approval, too. You don't have to go before the code enforcement officer first, and that was the way things were in the past. Another thing, public hearing and decision on special use permits. The authorized board shall conduct a public hearing within 62 days from the day an application is received. Used to be 30 days. So that's changing as of July 1st. And then another point that was brought out, the planning board shall hold a public hearing on such final plat not later than 62 days after receipt of the final plat. The hearing shall be advertised at least once in a newspaper of general circulation in the town at least 5 days before such hearing. Used to be 10 days. So that's a change too. I don't want to go into a bunch of mundane details, but these were a couple points that I thought were of interest and do concern. The 62 days is a change. It used to be 30 days. The 5 days used to be 10 days. And the idea regarding going before the zoning board without having to see the code enforcement, that wasn't something that came up just last night.
Yeah, you said you were going to copy that?
Yeah, I'll make a copy of it tonight. As I stated, the next meeting of the planning board will be on Tuesday, June 15th. We have 2 issues. I believe there'll be 2 issues coming before us. One, there'll be a public hearing first. And regarding that, I'd just like to mention, when I put the public notice in the paper for that standard subdivision, I changed the form of the public notice. I tried to follow a different format that's a little more uniform, and I got that from I've been looking at public notices lately to find a form that you can repeat and is clear. If anybody had any opinions regarding it, let me know. If it looks good, I'll follow that format all the time. It seems to be very clear. It had the addresses on it, and if people liked it, let me know if it helps to have you understand what's going on. But the public hearing we will have is regarding an application for subdivision approval by Mr. Lawrence Standard for property he has. I believe it's on the corner of Rowley Road and Hawk Road. There are signs on the property now announcing the public hearing, and that'll be for final approval of the subdivision. We also, I believe it was like last Wednesday, because somebody called me Tuesday night, and I told them I hadn't heard of it at that time, I think you did. I really didn't come into the town till last Wednesday. But we did receive an application from Cellular One, or otherwise known as the Syracuse Telephone Company, for site plan approval of their communications tower that they are requesting on Pierce Drive. It's almost an exact copy of their original request. I believe, I cannot say categorically, but I believe they will be attending our meeting next Tuesday night. I have not had any contact with them besides a letter that I sent to them. If there's anybody here who would like to take a look at their application or like to look at any communications we have, or if at any time further along this process you have any interest and would like to look through the material we have, please just let me know. I'll be glad to make it available to you. I'll come down here and meet you. You know, we want to do this right. I would like to state that regarding that, we are looking at this as a new application. We are going to go right through the process from start to finish. They had requested a public hearing virtually immediately. We turned them down. We understand, or I understand as chairman of the planning board, that when we did this the first time, there were some technical flaws brought out. My response and my feelings regarding that is we're going to try twice as hard this time to make sure we do it right, learn from our mistakes, make it a very complete and process, and I'm sure whatever we decide, there'll be somebody who won't be happy with it, but I will do my best, and I know the rest of the board feels the same way, to ensure that everybody can see how we arrived at our decision, how we made our decision, and I would like to stress that no decision has been made. We are just beginning the review process here. Besides that, I believe that's all I got. Next Thursday, the 17th, there is a meeting in Hastings being held by a planning federation regarding these new laws that are going into effect. I did register to attend that meeting. As you know, the meeting of the zoning update is next Thursday on the 17th. So I don't know how the board would like me to handle this, with me looking to try to get somebody else to attend this meeting in Hastings so that I could be at the zoning update meeting, or how do you feel? You want me to, to skip the zoning update meeting and attend this one? So, let me know.
I think, being the chairman, you should attend the federation meeting.
Okay. All right.
You will have representatives there from your board on the zoning
I
update.
believe Bill's going to be there, right? And I'll let the other members know that, that the meeting is next Thursday.
I think we should have representation at the...
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kevin, I have one quick question before you sit down, or you can sit down if you like. The situation with being on a county planning board and a town planning board, a few years ago, that was a law that you couldn't do that they considered that a conflict, or a classic conflict of interest at the time, citing the fact that you can't really advise yourself from an upper level to a lower level, and you couldn't do that particular thing, and now they've changed the law where you can. Are there any restrictions, though? I mean, what made it different all of a sudden, where they allow it? Are there any restrictions on doing it? I mean, if something comes before the town that regards the county that they have to approve, can you, as a member of the town planning, vote on that issue if it came from the county? Are there any restrictions at all?
I don't know, Howard. I'm not really that involved in who gets appointed to the planning board, so I've never been really involved with that type of situation, or who gets on the county planning board. The only thing I can tell you is that it says here, service on other planning boards, no person shall be disqualified from serving as a member of the town planning board by reason of serving as a member of a village or county planning board. Now, does that mean it was wrong in the past? I don't know. Yeah. In some cases, they just basically put on paper what was happening, or what was going on. But I don't know. But I'll make a copy of this, and like I said,
Kevin, Gary, since he is the individual that situation applies to, asked me if I knew the answer to that, so I called Scott Chatfield a couple of months ago on that, and what the situation is if you are both on county and on the local planning board, when something about your town comes before the county, you have to abstain, but when it goes to the local level, then you vote.
That's how I understand it to be, too. That's how I understand it, right?
That's what I was asking. Thank you, Craig.
zoning board, Barbara Foster,
Well,
chairperson.
Barb couldn't make it, she dropped this off at the house. So the zoning board of appeals held a public hearing last night on Mr. Bruce Williams, area variance, building a barn 25 feet off property line instead of 50 feet, decision to grant variance passed. 2 Whitewaters for the River Glen Shopping Mall area variances, copy of resolution enclosed. Sorry, I can't be there, she has another commitment. And I will give a copy, instead of reading all this, a copy and have it on file with the town clerk, if anybody wants to see it. And we didn't get a copy of the regular meeting afterwards, so it must be their secretary didn't get that part of it typed up.
Jess, did they pass the resolution regarding Whitewater? Did they grant it, or did they?
Well, let's see.
I believe they did.
The resolution shall take effect immediately. Motion was made by Barb Foster to adopt the above resolution and seconded by John Negelsmith. 1 absent and 4 voted yes. 1 had comments and minutes. So I, Barb Foster, Town of Volney Zoning Board of Appeals Chairman, certify the above resolution was made and adopted by the Volney Board of Appeals on June 9th, 1993 meeting. So this will be on file with the town clerk.
This was a resolution on the construction of the sign, is that what it was?
This is resolution on the variance on the signs, and the way they wanted to, the green area, which the planning board wanted, I guess, more green area. So they wanted to narrow up the passing roads in the parking lot. Am I getting this correct, Kevin?
Right, it was, our town laws require a 10-foot by 20-foot parking space. A lot of them now are 9 by 18, simply because cars are smaller now than they were 20 years ago, and that was one request. And we recommended that because it allowed us to increase the size of the green area in front of the shopping center.
But also, the lanes where they drive are gonna be a little
24
narrower.
feet.
Yes. And I guess our zoning showed one way of parking, and they show theirs were are opposite, so that you drive up one row to park on an angle and come down another. I know it was gonna be able to changing the parking would be able to pick them up the footage they wanted to maintain the green area.
Right. And it was to approve the pole sign. They had 1 pole sign, or pylon sign, or whatever you want to refer to it, and then the signage on the building
Signs on
itself.
the building.
Thank you, Jess. The next report is the building inspectors. Ed Kuhn is unable to be here tonight, and
On behalf of that,
Okay.
the following the report. Permits that were issued last month are 2 garages, 4 new homes, 3 pools, 1 shed, 2 septic systems, 1 church, 1 home addition. Receivables for that month were $1,259.
how much?
$1,259.
Dog control.
I have Joe's report.
Thank you.
Joe's made on this month a total of 38 calls. He's got 3 calls pending. He's traveled 96 miles. He has 4 dogs at the pound as of this date. 1 dog has been redeemed by the owner. 3 dogs were taken for euthanasia. No tickets have been issued. We've had 3 adoptions. That's Joe's report. He says he's at University Hospital or something. I don't know where he is. He just left this one. That's the report.
Thank you, Jim. Highway report. Bob Kerping is unable to be here, so I will deliver the Highway Superintendent's monthly report for May. 15 days were spent machinery maintenance, 5 days cold patching, 9 days cutting shoulders and ditches, 3 days repairing signs, 5 days mowing roadsides, 3 days driveways, and 2 days picking up trash on roadways. And I think that's going to be a never-ending job around here.
I think that would get bigger.
Huh?
I think that would get bigger.
Yes, it definitely is going to take more. The amount of trash we see alongside our highways is unfortunately getting worse and worse. That concludes the Highway Department report. Recreation, Randy?
Yes.
On the 24th of May, we took a group of children to Empire Skates in Baldwinsville. We were there for 3 hours, took one busload of kids down and had no problems, everything went well. Upcoming, we have bingo here tomorrow night for kids. This will be free to all the children in Volney. We'll have prizes for them. Every kid that comes will get something to go home. I mean, this is the first time for this. We're going to give it a shot and see how it goes. We're not going to do anything in the latter part of the month because school's over with and there's tests and stuff, and we don't want to influence any of that. Upcoming things, we've got a boat trip planned. We're either going to visit the Swan Valley Game Farm, if I can work out a deal with him, or go to the Syracuse Zoo, as we have in the past. And Syracuse Chief tickets, we're working on that right now to firm up a date for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Any other reports? Old business, I have none. Any member of the town board have
I just have one,
old business?
Mr. Supervisor, was on the truck bed. Was there going to be anything done with it?
It's been tabled, and as I understand, nothing has been done.
As of right now, he doesn't want in the truck.
He has not spoken to me about rebidding.
Okay, well, I wrote up a general set of specs. If it's decided they want to pursue it.
Okay, thank you. That'd be, we'll turn it over to Bob.
I have a couple of things, Mr. Supervisor. The first item being, last month I was asking about the use of this town hall for dog training that was happening here. Did you do any research on it to find out the status of the group that's doing it, or what do we have?
Yeah, we checked, and it's a perfectly viable organization that's doing it.
I pulled the resolution that we actually passed, and the actual resolution, what that makes, in fact, it was a comment that you made, Howard. Councilman Rose mentioned it didn't say you couldn't have a fundraiser. So as this stands now, it is the desire of the town board to continue to make available the facilities of the Volney Municipal Building for all not-for-profit organizations. And the Association of Towns Council and the State Controller's Councilors have stated that towns may make available their facilities to private organizations so long as it's available to all organizations on an equal basis, and that adequate and fair compensation is received for the use of those facilities. Move, therefore, that the use of the facilities at the Volney Municipal Building be made available to all not-for-profit organizations, subject to the following conditions. I won't read the whole thing, but it goes into availability and to the 2 checks, one for $25 to cover the use, the other as held against whether or not the housekeeping was done after and the place was left a mess, and that also that all town-sponsored, government-related functions, both local, county, state, and federal, of course, exempt from this fee. So you could not have a for-profit business in here charging things, but a not-for-profit could even have a fundraiser, and it would be legal under the resolution that we passed 92-174, which is the latest one that we did, and it became effective January 1st, 1993.
And what are we accepting for proof for nonprofit organizations? How do we know they're nonprofit? Just by their say-so, or are we acquiring something to show that?
In the resolution, we did not set down any guidelines as to proof of nonprofit status. That's a valid question. If, you know, maybe that's something we should all think about over the next month. If there is some guidelines we want to have available for Byron to use to determine whether or not it is a nonprofit.
Okay, well, usually it's a tax number or some kind of tax-exempt status with the IRS or whatever. This particular organization is not that. I talked to the lady that runs it, and although they do belong to the Onondaga Kennel Association, this is not sanctioned by that or affiliated with that. This is a own private group of people who are doing this.
Well, that's why really it's our responsibility to make the guidelines. So if maybe that's something we should all think about over the next month, to come up with guidelines so Byron would have
the fact that you have a tax exempt status is one that is done in order to make donations to that organization tax-free and relates to IRS rulings. However, almost every club that I know of does not have such a
They may not have
exemption.
applied for the charities.
There is no reason to, because they are basically a club. And this is what, basically, this is a club. And while they may charge dues like all clubs do, the dues are to cover their expenses. And their expenses may even include paying the teacher that is instructing them on how to handle their dogs. So I have no problem with this organization continuing on in the town of Volney municipal building.
This resolution did not limit the use of this building to town residents then.
No, it didn't.
It couldn't have, Jess, if we were talking national.
Well, I didn't vote for it, for the simple reason you were gonna charge nonprofit organizations to use our own facilities. But if somebody is charging, was it $80?
I think it's $40.
$40 per dog, and they're bringing in $320, and it's an 8-week course, and you're charging them $25, and they don't live in a town, I don't see where it's a nonprofit organization.
Well, maybe we need to work on the definition of nonprofit.
Yeah, I think we do, because I think the purpose of our resolution was to open up to the taxpayers of this community, not outsiders that come in and use the facility for something like this, which I really don't mind, but I am concerned about the liability. If the dog has a bad day and bites someone in here, we're going to get sued, and we certainly don't want to open it up for something like that. But and it's not exclusively for Volney residents; it's open to anybody. And I guess there's only 2 members that live in Volney. Everyone else is off the side of the area that comes here for the use
Well,
of
that
this
puts you
facility.
in a funny position, Howard. How many people in the group have to be a resident of Volney to be a Volney organization?
No, that's not what
Well,
I'm saying.
you know, because you could get it, are you gonna have a percentage test to be a
That's not
Volney
what I'm saying.
organization?
That's not what I'm saying at all. My biggest concern is that we had some people wanted to use it for square dancing that had to go through some hassles for 3 months and never got to use the facility, and a price tag was put on it so that they couldn't because they couldn't afford it. Yet we have people from outside the community coming here to use it for functions of their own. That's my concern. And I still don't think we should be charging a fee for the use of this town hall for the local residents to use. Outsiders, maybe yes, because we do have utilities we have to pay for. But local residents, I still disagree with that. So I think we ought to look at that again too. As long as we're going to look into what the status of a tax exempt group is, let's also look into the possibility of letting the residents of this town use this building at no charge for their function.
Well, I spoke to Mr. Hinman about that last night, and he was happy just to hear that he could have a fundraiser in here, and it didn't matter how much money he made, as long as we got $25. So he didn't seem distressed last night.
Okay, well, let's just consider that if we could, please.
Any other old business?
Yes, a couple more items here. At our work session Tuesday, I presented a resolution that I withdrew after some discussion with the board, and it concerned the cellular tower issue. And what I was simply requesting was a public hearing on the issue so we can get some input from the people of the town. The majority of the board disagreed with it, claiming that the last meeting we voted down a moratorium, which indeed we did, 3-2. But my request was simply to consider a public hearing on it. And what we discussed was the fact that you can't have a public hearing without the moratorium set up so that people can review it and be prepared to comment on it. So I suggested having our attorney draw up the moratorium so that we could do that. And the majority of the board, once again, didn't want to do that. They considered it a dead issue and they weren't going to discuss it anymore. So I said, fine, I'll withdraw my resolution because I'm not going to make a big scene out of the resolution, but at least I'm going to make it known that this is what the discussion was about. I still feel that a moratorium is in order here because it isn't addressed in our zoning, and it is not singling out the Cellular One Tower. It's all, concerning every section of town. And I do think that we should have a moratorium, and I think you're doing a disservice to the community if you do not consider a public hearing on the issue so that at least we get some input, and then if you're still not satisfied, vote it down and don't do anything about it. But I think we at least owe it to the public to have a public hearing on it. And I know I can't make a motion to have a public hearing tonight because we don't have a moratorium to consider, but I'm asking again for this board to consider a moratorium and start to
Howard,
fix
I
it.
still don't know what you want, and I didn't know what you wanted last night either. Do you want a moratorium on towers? Tell me exactly, this is what I think the confusion was Tuesday night.
Very
I don't think
simple,
we
Jim.
know what you want.
Jim, it's very simple. A moratorium would halt any construction of towers until we, as a board and a zoning and planning board, have a chance to discuss the issue and make considerations for how we want to have these towers in our town, where we want them, and so on.
This is only addressing towers, is that what you're saying?
Towers, correct. Cellular, any kind of towers, doesn't even have to be a cellular tower, any tower, okay? It's obviously a concern, it's something that just came up, and just because this one issue brought it to light, doesn't mean we're gonna target that one issue. I'm considering this for any towers of any type, and I think we have to address it. It's not in our zoning, it's not addressed, so they can go anywhere. I don't particularly want one in my backyard next month, and it could happen because we don't address it. And I think we need to, and that's the reason for the moratorium. It's a stopgap measure to look at the situation, decide what's best for this community, and act upon it. And right now, we're not doing that. You people have refused to even consider it. I don't know why. I don't know what your real reasons are.
Any other new business or old business?
Is that it, Mr. McFarland? You just...
Is that,
What is it that you want? I agree with Jim. What is it that you want? We have had, Howard, if you want, excuse me, I'll reply to Howard's question. If you want more discussion, I think this group has heard discussion until we are sick and tired of it. Number one, we can do, Howard, that we have heard every single argument there is about this particular tower.
That's not what we're talking about a moratorium for. We're talking about it for all or any towers in this town until we know how we want to handle the situation. That's what I'm talking about. You haven't heard anything on that issue. You've only heard the cellular issue.
You know, I'm not sure, Howard, what I can go along with you in some ways on this, given a couple of things. You're talking a moratorium for a period of time, is that correct? That's if this is the way it's going to be, then I can't do it. Now, just hang on a second. Because I've got to get clear in my mind. And it wasn't clear before, honestly. You want to have an attorney look at this situation and draw up a moratorium for a set period of time relating to towers. That moratorium would entail having a public hearing where the public would have an opportunity to discuss that particular issue. Is that what you want to have happen?
Absolutely.
You want the attorney to look at that?
Correct.
okay, at the zoning update meeting, when we discussed this, and every question that anybody had for Dennis Hawthorne Jr., he had answered them. He expressed that he didn't feel that if what we wanted this moratorium for was as a solution to the concerns about the Pierce Drive problem, that it wouldn't accomplish what we were looking for. There wouldn't be time, whatever, all right?
Accomplish what we're looking for is just to look at the situation. Well,
No,
that's all.
wait a minute, Howard. That it wouldn't be able to accomplish what we were looking for. Everyone was in agreement with that at the end of that meeting, that this was not the solution to that situation. I asked at the time, does anybody want to go into a moratorium, realizing that it would probably have no effect at all due to the information we got from Mr. Hawthorne and the time schedule involved on this current project. Did you want to go through with it knowing that it wouldn't affect that, and there wasn't, the general feeling at the time was there probably wouldn't be any more of these types of towers, so that it wouldn't be necessary If your concern is other projects besides this one, then we should get together and work out what we want a moratorium to be, for how long, whatever, to meet the criterion of it, realizing that it probably will have no effect at all on this current thing. But there was no interest in that at the meeting, and that's why it was dropped.
I don't recall that at all, Claudia. I don't remember anyone saying it, because I certainly would have had interest in it, and I think I expressed that at the meeting. How do you know it wouldn't affect the one happening now? It could have if we had had a public hearing set that day. Our attorney was there, we could have called one, we could have had it tonight had we acted, but nobody wanted to act.
Howard, I have one question for you, and I've got to get this clear in my mind, because this is something that bothered me that night, it bothers me now. I understand you saying that when the five of us were sitting there as a board together, we could have acted as a board. Is that what I hear you saying?
Almost certainly, Jim.
Because you have always said that any of these work sessions, we could not do those particular things, and you've always said that. Now, you've just changed totally your position.
That was not a work session when we were talking with our attorney about that, Jim. That was a meeting, it was a forum of the board, we had someone taking minutes, that was a legal meeting, it was announced here, last month, Jim.
No difference. It was a work session, Howard.
It was a work session with a quorum and the minutes being taken, it could be considered a meeting. And if not, I suggested Mr. McFarland could have called the meeting the next day, which he could have, a special meeting, he's supervisor, he can do that. We could have gotten in the paper by noon, it would have been on Monday, and we could have had the public hearing today. Didn't I say that? And it could have been done. We certainly did have the time.
Our attorney said that to get the moratorium in, you had to have at least, I believe, if I recall correctly, a 60-day wait. Am I right?
No, that's when it goes to the county for review, not a 60-day wait for a moratorium. That'd be ridiculous. Maybe before it took effect.
Go into effect.
Right, but the public hearing could have been called that day, Jim.
But that's the issue that's being moved. Now, I personally don't have a problem of us sitting down, going through this and having your attorney draw up something. I don't have a concern with that. My concern is that I believe we were trying to do the moratorium to take care of the tower issue. If that be true, I believe that that situation is going to be handled by the planning board. I think it's going through the proper channel. And I believe that's where you were going last night. If you realize...
The planning board cannot deal with it, Jim. They even expressed that. I think Kevin expressed that very clearly last time. We need to do it as a board.
One of the things that, while the attorney cannot make, Dennis Hawthorne could not make this as a positive statement about a moratorium and its potential effect upon Cellular One and what they might do should we pass a moratorium. But it is my opinion and others, and in talking with Dennis, he says it is a possibility that we will have legal action brought against us, and it is highly likely that we would lose.
Dave, I think the concern, though, and I think you're in the same mindset that I was, I think, Tuesday night. I think the people here are accepting the fact this is going to planning board and it's going to go through that process. At least that's what I don't hear. Okay, then.
Your planning board asked you for
It's irrelevant. There's two issues.
Excuse me, the public is not allowed to speak.
At this point. Then I'm right back where I was before. If it was the issue of towers and not this specific one,
It's not this specific one, Jim. Why are you saying that? No one said anything about this specific tower. I'm trying to address all towers in the town of Volney.
That is the way that you seem to be explaining yourself on Tuesday, Howard.
No, I did not. I did not. Maybe I referred to that tower because it brought light to
But
this
it
problem,
is-
but I did not specify
But
that
it
tower.
is not correct procedure to make a resolution to say you want to have a public hearing about something and not have the resolution that you're having the public hearing about.
I would have
If,
to
however,
our attorney draw
wait a minute. It's one thing to just plain have a public meeting to allow people for a public information meeting, something like that. But you cannot call it a public hearing when you don't have a resolution that you're having the public hearing about.
I understand that, Claudia.
then I don't understand what your problem is about your resolution.
My problem is, I think we need a moratorium. This town board does not want to address that. You don't want to get a
No, when you were
moratorium
asked
on
the
it.
question, do you want to go on with this, knowing that it probably will not affect this tower?
care about that
No
tower.
one had any interest in doing anything.
No, that's not true at all. I certainly have an interest. I know Jesse has an interest. How can you say that?
Well, because you didn't speak.
Because I knew it was fruitless.
A question was asked, you give no answer, and then you wonder why people don't
Well, first of all, I
understand
don't
you.
remember the question, but if I didn't respond, it's because I was in frustration is why. Okay? Look, it's obvious you people have your mind set up. This one's gonna go through no matter what, and you don't care to stop anything about it. That's fine if that's how you feel, but you obviously don't care about any others either. Because if you drag your feet on this any longer, there could be another one cropping up next month. We don't know that. Are you taking a gamble on that, or what?
Howard, we are going through the complete process all over again. Everybody has a chance to provide input
On one tower.
on an application.
Right,
Yes.
I'm not talking about that application. You keep referring to that one application. I'm talking about a moratorium on any other towers in this town until we address it in our zoning. That's all I'm asking for.
I'm certainly willing to let our attorney look at this, come up with something, and we can work out the details. I don't have a problem with that, or to be perfectly frank with you.
And that was what was asked at the meeting, and you said nothing, Howard.
No, I did not, Claudia. I've got the tape of it. I'll play that back and
I thought Dennis
refresh
gave
your
us,
memory.
Go ahead.
you had all the options of talking, Dennis was there, and I do not recollect and recall you're saying we want to go with the moratorium anyway, even though we understand that we will not be probably timely regarding this tower. I do not recall you saying that. Did you? Did you
I thought it was
say
very clear what I was trying to get across that night,
that?
Jim.
It was. You wanted a moratorium to stop the tower that's currently
No,
being...
no. I did not specify that tower. Quit saying that, Jim.
We're on
Forget it. It's obvious we're not gonna get anywhere with it.
Howard, do you have any other old business?
Yes, one more comment. Claudia, your sister last month brought up a comment that and I quote, she says, was going to tear down the Dunsmore building if it got built. Now, I called the Dunsmore. That's not the case. No, I don't know why you had to say something foolish like that. It's not the case. I'm sorry. I just had to state that for the record. Okay? It wasn't necessary. Okay, that's all I have.
Any other old business? We'll move on to public comment on resolutions only. Does anybody have any comment on the resolutions?
Before they do 93-100 has to be slightly revised. The information I got from the firemen, once they distributed the list to their men, some of the years of eligibility and points were challenged. So there are some of these people that they are double checking the figures to make sure they are correct. So it will be changed to, whereas the town of Volney volunteer firefighters qualified in 1992 for a service award program, and whereas some of those have also qualified and are eligible for buyback for previous year's service, therefore move that $480 per firefighter per separate eligibility be approved to initially fund the Town of Volney Volunteer Fire Corporation Service Award Program. That way we will be able to fund this without waiting an extra month. That is the formula under which it's figured, and that way, as soon as we get the firm numbers from the firemen, we can go ahead.
Also, one other correction on Resolution 9399. In the fourth whereas, it's whereas the town board and Randy Bennett met with Anthony W. Kotz. It should read, whereas the town board, comma, Randy Bennett, comma, and Charles Smart met with Anthony W. Kotz. I would add the words and Charles Smart, who was also a member appointed by Dave to the Recreation Group.
Thank you for that. Okay, is there any public comment? Yes.
I have a question on Resolution 9391 that Jim just clarified, Randy and Charles Smart and Was Howard supposed to be a part of this committee as well?
93, 91?
I'm sorry.
It's the town board.
Okay, but he just said that the proposal with Brandy, Charles Smart, and himself, was this the one that Howard was supposed to be on as well?
This is the
You
town
list
board,
the town
you
board.
list the town board in its entirety, Marie.
But I know, but wasn't there a committee that was supposed to be set up in the
They were all
board?
there too. The other members were there too.
Okay. All right, my question is, are we appropriating $4,500 to begin this park, or is this just for a study? Because there's $4,000 budgeted for the park fund. Isn't that all it's budgeted right now, $4,000? $5,000? You're gonna spend $4,500 for a study. Does this mean we're gonna have only $500 left to build it?
We'll get into that under discussion, yes.
Well, I would just like an answer, because if that's the case, if you're gonna take...
There is $5,000 in the park fund at the present time, and we are, the resolution is to approve the expenditure of $4,500
For a study.
No, the plan.
for a plan.
Yes.
Okay, you spend $4,500 for a plan,
Yes.
and $500 to build it.
No, no. The
Well,
plan,
you've only got $45,000 funded.
Marie, we'll get into a discussion of it, but the park could not even be built this year. We will be probably allocating considerable sum of money to build that park next year. The grading will start this, preliminary grading will start this year.
Well, my feeling is, if you're gonna spend $4,500 on a plan, I would ask that you really study that. I just think that's an exorbitant amount for just a plan. I know Howard spent a lot of time on plans, and he did a lot of work, and I think that it could be a lot cheaper than $4,500. That just seems like an exorbitant amount for an outside agency to come in for a park.
Yes.
Well, no, I'll later, when we come in.
Yes.
My name's Alan Kessler. I would like to comment on and ask some questions on the same resolution, 93-99. It said you have received a letter dated April 30th from Cox and Associates. Would you enlighten us as to what that letter said?
The letter is quite, outlines their services.
Yeah, I understand.
And here it is. If you wish, I can read it.
No, I don't. I have the same concern Marie does. You're telling them you're going to give them people $4,500. Do you have any idea? Did they give you any hint as to what their plan is going to cost?
No.
You know,
That is the plan.
what? No, I'm talking about.
You mean the actual construction?
What the construction cost is? No.
No. You cannot, until you have a plan, you cannot get specs and determine its cost.
We have some children who would like to play baseball, okay? Now, I'm not saying we gotta put Tide cans over there with rocks on them for second base, but, you know, this is generating more problems than where to put MacArthur Stadium down in Syracuse. All we wanna do, you know, we want a place for kids to play baseball. You don't need any $4,500 plan. You people sit up there arguing over what the dimension should be. Is it gonna be midget? Is it gonna be this? Pick one, you know, pick one. Just take one and, you know, this can be done a lot cheaper. And I know that what's the word here? More efficiently done by professionals specializing in such services. Now, I'm not sure you're using the word efficient there well. If you're talking about related cost standpoints in the sentence above that, that goes out the window. If you're talking about getting in some highfalutin people to plan how to do a playground for $4,500, and then, what was the figure, what did you just say, 200,000?
That's what they said the other day. He estimated the whole project to be about 200,000.
Is this gonna be domed? What? This is ludicrous. It's ludicrous. I hope that you don't vote for this. I mean, Howard's not an architect, we already know that. And he's not a planner of recreation areas, I know that. But, you know, you just make sure it's the same distance from first to second to third, make it square. I don't understand why you're turning this into some big thing. I really don't. And just take the $4,500, and I'm sure for that, we could probably lay out a real good baseball diamond over there, and well, you're a volleyball fan, is it? Is that right? Is that what, that's what you want over there, is a volleyball court? Yeah, I know you want the whole thing, but we get a volleyball court, and baseball diamond, and a couple of basketball hoops. Is that right? I mean, we're turning this into the Drake thing. I'm sorry, I don't agree with spending that much money for them to tell us it's gonna cost us $200,000. Because if they tell you that, then your $4,500 is gonna be gone. It's gonna be gone because there's no way that $200,000 is gonna be raised in any amount of time to do that park. And it seems to me like, well, we'll do it next year. Well, no, we'll do it the year after.
The total cost that he gave, if it was done by outside contractors, was in the area of $200,000. It's gonna be done a great deal less expensive depending on the volunteer people that we get to work and so forth. The object of doing a plan is to have the most efficient use of the land possible. Now, say what you want to about the plan that Howard drew up. It is not a plan that utilizes the space because things are too crowded. This is a professional who's dealt with numerous municipalities. He has been brought in currently by the city of Fulton to modify and work with them on their parks. If you're going to expend the monies and if you're going to build a park that is going to be more than just a baseball field where kids can run around, that as was proposed in Howard's plan, then you need to have a professional developer come in. You need to know the drainage factors that we need to have. You need all of this for $4,500.
If we had $200,000 for the park, I would say, go ahead, but we don't have $200,000.
I'm going to say you have your ball field in a much less expense than that, and we are going to begin with the land, taking back the topsoil and so forth, as soon as Mr. Kotz gives us the dimensions that we need and the way that we can utilize that particular area. And I do not believe that to simply go with the rough drawing of a ball field here and then to go through a few years later and modify the whole thing. If we're going to do it, I firmly believe it should be done correctly by a professional who does this for a living. The credentials of the man are impeccable. If you look at this, and for $4,500, we're going to have a plan that will utilize that particular land most effectively and most efficiently. It's not going to be something that we're going to guess and then come back in and expend money throughout the course of the year.
Well, I would
It will be done
argue-
right the first time.
I would argue that there's enough land over there that we don't have to be real,
I think we do if you're going to.
real concerned about the efficiency.
Well, I think you do. And I firmly disagree with you. You need parking, you need, it depends upon what the ultimate plan is, because the plan that Howard had certainly utilized what he considered to be every foot of space available. My concern is, and the concern, though Mr. Kotz wouldn't specifically say it last night, is it's too crowded, it's too congested, it will create numerous different problems if you have reasonable utilization of the area, which I believe we all want. Consequently, I firmly believe now that we have to have a planned activity, and we're going to be meeting next Tuesday with Mr. Kotz to go through the dream package and then what actually will fit into that area. You're certainly welcome to come if you want to, Al, and add your desires and wishes.
Any other public comment? Yes, ma'am.
Give me your name, please. 99, Val Stevens. $4,500, is that, you say that's the plans. Is that the total plans, the specs and everything? Someone could be handed those plans and build a park from them? Or is this just to think about starting the plans and then there's an additional amount of money to get the plans? Is this how it works, or $4,500 for the plans?
The plans would be available and would be adequate, according to Mr. Kotz, for volunteer labor to come in and do. If we're going to bid the bid each item, we're gonna bid the ball field. They are not spec'd out enough for a bid. They would have to be in more detail.
So how much is that gonna
I do not know.
You said 4,500, didn't I, Jim?
He said 4,500 for the whole park, not just the ball field,
No,
the total
4,500
second.
for the additional plans and details. he
That's
said.
right.
A total of 9,000.
Total wish pad. That's right.
$9,000 to get, for them to plan the park, where to put the swing, where to put the picnic tables in the parking
No,
lot.
4,500 has, that will all be done. To spec and to bid the ball field. Let's assume that our project number one is the baseball field. That would be a step, if we did it with volunteer labor, and if we had someone come in with the appropriate equipment and proper equipment to do that, the plans that he's giving us now would be, I believe he said, adequate to do that. Now, if we're going to bid it and have a contractor come in and do it and take bids on it, they are not specific enough for a contractor to come in and bid.
Well, how do you think this is gonna go? Contractor, or are you gonna allow
I have
volunteers
absolutely.
to help with the park, Mr. McFarland?
I think we'll have quite a bit of it done by the town, is my assumption, right at this particular time.
Okay, well, Mr. McFarland, do you have the same assumption that most of this will be built through volunteers and people in the town, or?
Now, well, no, not through volunteers, through the town, through our town employees and so forth. For example, if someone wants to come in with big equipment and it's someone that we feel comfortable with, then yes, but,
Well, $200,000, I mean, to me, that's like
200,000 is a
Disneyland.
figure that
But
was,
that's not what we want. We don't want a Disneyland. $200,000.
200,000 is a figure that the ultimate, and that's not what we're looking at.
Yes, ma'am?
Who's gonna be using this, Barbara McEwen? Who's gonna be using this park? Is it gonna be the kids here,
Well,
or are you gonna hold the World Series here?
to answer your question, the initial focus was adults. Because if you're going to have a softball field, you're talking volleyball courts, and what else?
Basketball.
Basketball. These are not basically,
Jogging drills.
you're not talking young children and playgrounds, you're talking older children.
Why is it so elaborate? I mean, it will serve the same purpose.
That is why we are having an architect or planner help us with this.
Howard already went through all of that.
He admits, at the time he did it, it was done in a rush.
No, I did not.
Well,
I said I was an amateur, Jim. I didn't say I did it in a rush.
Well, I can go back in a minute, Howard, and find it, but that's neither here nor there. But admittedly, you are not an expert, all right?
Yes, I admit I'm not an expert. I think I did a pretty fine, darn good job, though. What'd you charge?
Yeah?
0.
Yes.
My name is Donna Kestner, and I just want to remind you all of one thing. You are our public servants. We do not want what you're voting on. And you're talking about professional. Then you're saying the professional said $200,000, but you're saying, well, it's not going to cost $200,000. That's not what you said?
That's what we heard.
All right, I think where the confusion is if it was not done at all by the town with town equipment. If we bid this out to private contractors, it could cost that much. Anyone who's had any excavation work done knows that these type of people don't come cheap. However, if you're able to utilize your current town employees and equipment, obviously it brings the figure amazingly down, because it's just people you already are paying and it's being worked into their work schedule.
Then why can't we just do that? Do you think Palermo, have you ever been to Palermo Town Park? It's a simple park. Like, they have tires for kids to climb on. They have a pavilion where you can go have a picnic. But we don't need a professional to come up with this. You are wasting our money. You are wasting our money. We have spent hours. If you would act like I feel a liaison to Randy. You refuse to acknowledge us as a committee at all, but we work with Randy. We work with Randy. Come to our meetings. When Mr. McFarland came on board, he took Howard off the park committee and put you on there. Mr. Rose was at our meetings, okay? He came to our meetings. Why don't you come to our meetings? You've been to one. We are interested. We are there.
I work with
Okay,
Randy. Randy's
but-
the person that is on the liaison to Randy. He's our director.
I understand that, but Randy can't function. He doesn't function alone out there. We help him. We help him, and we're interested parties. And you just seem to go up there and you just use your own opinion to decide what you want. This is who you're supposed to be listening to. We're here because we're interested. And it's our comments that should make a difference to all of you on that board.
Mr. Ridgway, can I just ask a question? Certainly. You said that it was Cox and Associates. Have you been in touch with any other developer?
No,
And
I'm
is there a
not.
lower price?
To the best of my knowledge, he's one of the main ones in the area. I have checked with the various different municipalities that have used Cox and Associates, and this is the one that, if you look at the credentials, and you look at the
I
places.
believe you. I just wonder how competitive he is. That's all.
I know the credentials he has.
Not the question. How competitive?
Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Phil Valley. I just have a question on Resolution 93-100. It says here that whereas 24 of those firemen, and I have nothing against firemen, are qualified and are eligible, you're going to move that 29,000 some odd dollars are approved. And then a resolution was changed to say a certain number at 400 and some odd dollars a piece be approved. I'd like to know the difference between 24 for 29,000, which is a little over $1,000 a piece, versus $400 a piece for the firemen.
Okay, what this is a two-part thing. What was passed was that there was a service award that anyone earning 50 points, which is not an easy thing to earn. It requires a lot of hours of volunteer time to earn these 50 points, would get $480, could earn the $480 per year pension. However, recognizing the fact that a lot of these people have put in many, many years already to protecting us in the town of Volney, and there was no provision to do anything for them. The resolution that we passed and was approved by the voters last November also allowed for what is called a buyback. And then that means that up to 5 years worth of past service from prior to 1992, that firemen put in the amount of work required to have earned the pension currently, that they can get a bonus of up to 5 years. If they put in work for 20 years, they still only would get 5 years worth of credit towards the pension at $480 a piece per year. So that's why we had to change this, is they were double checking some of the figures on exactly who qualified. There were, at the first count, we were given 37 people that qualified at $480 a piece for a current year's qualification, and of those 37, it takes a current year's qualification to give you this buyback. So it's not just somebody says, well, I used to be a fireman 20 years ago, I want my 5 years credit. That's not how it works. They have to have one current year's worth of activity and earning the full points in order to qualify for this buyback of up to 5 years. And of the 37 who made the current year, 24 of them were firemen that had earned prior year's service.
Okay, so it's $480 per year then?
Right.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Yes.
I have a question on that.
Your name, please.
My name is Terry Reynolds.
Thank you.
On that, you were saying about on the fire department. Now, what happens to the credits a person earns through the year as being a fireman, and then the fire department votes out that person? What happens to those credits?
If they had earned 50 points prior to that, then they would have earned their 50 points, but they would have had to earn their 50 points.
What happens to those 50 points if they vote a person out of the fire department and had all those 50 points?
I think that, very honestly,
I would
I can't answer that, and I don't think Claudia should be
There-
answering it. I think it probably would be an answer for a lawyer.
Well,
what
there
I'm getting
is,
at-
there is a gentleman who's an executive committee member with the Firemen's Association of the State of New York, and he is an expert on this pension, and that question has never come up before, but I will certainly call him tomorrow, and I can get back to you with the answer.
All right, because what I'm getting at
Or I
is-
can give you his name and number, and you can call him directly if you prefer.
what I'm getting at is, if a person gets voted out and then goes back and reapplies to the fire department, gets accepted in, and then what happens to those points that the person earned the year that he was in and qualified for those points?
Again, Terry, I think that answer should come from somebody who's much better qualified to answer it than we are, and I would suggest you either call this individual that...
Would you like his name and number, or would you like me to check for you?
Would you check for me?
Sure.
I think, Claudia, you and I were talking earlier about that break in service, and you said we didn't have anything written in there about if somebody
If it
has
was to take it
dropped
away,
out
yeah.
and will come back in, there's nothing in there that says about a break of service where
That it would
we don't
eliminate anything.
eliminate
Right.
the points they've accumulated.
Right. It's the kicker of the whole thing is they have to earn the qualifying year to be able to tap into these prior years' service in either 1992, 93, or 94. So that is the, if you have a current year by the end of 1994, then you would be able to tap into the prior year's 50-point year. If you didn't get associated with the fire department until after 1994, then it's beyond the scope of that. It would only be the current years.
Well, the situation he's talking about, there's no prior year buyback. It's just the 1 year that he's talking about. In other words, if he got last year, the person got 50 points.
But they're not currently in.
They're not listed. And they got voted out. He's not even listed on the program. For
Okay,
that 1
I'll
year.
check with Mr. Beach on that. That exact question hasn't come up before.
And if the person come back, say, in another year, and they voted them in, they've got right now nothing listed for that person as 1 credit year.
Right. I'll call him about that.
I never give that up on
No.
a situation Terry's talking about.
No, I hadn't either, so I will check on that, and I'll give you a call when I've got the answer.
Randy?
Yes, in a conversation between Mr. Kester and Jim there on the park, Jim stated that if Mr. Kester wanted to come on the 15th, that he could speak and do his, what he had to say. At the meeting we had with Cott's associate there, Tony, you said that only the board and the committee could talk at that meeting. Have you revised that now so that anybody could?
I think if there is citizen input, I personally would have no objection to that.
Oh, okay, I was understanding the other night, but okay, fine. 2 other things. I was talking to Tony after the meeting. I informed him there's a lot of trash over there that has to be removed before we can ever even get started. Old junk cars, barrels, all kinds of things on that site. Is that something that you could ask the town to go over and do if they had a free moment, an empty truck with one of their backhoes, and clean that up, get those junk cars out of there? At this time, they're untransportable because they rotted apart so bad.
I've never seen any junk cars over there, Randy.
I pushed them all on pile when we were working over there, when Parks and Recreation was working over there last year before we got pulled off. And we pushed them all in a pile. They were the ones the fire department burned up. And we pushed them out of the way so the kids couldn't get into them when we were building the archery course. But there's junk. No, they're just around them, but I mean, there's junk cars, there's barrels, there's telephone poles, there's a lot of garbage over there. It's gotta be moved.
Why don't you review that situation with Randy and let us know about it, okay?
One other thing, when I talked to Tony, he says that if we could keep the brush cut down before it grows to trees.
Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah.
What you're talking about has nothing to do with the resolution.
Well, all I'm saying is that in preparation for him to go over and look at this.
Again, that does belong under public comment. I'd like to limit this right now to resolutions only.
I think that this is resolution, Dave.
Wait a minute.
Public comment on the resolution.
On resolutions and resolutions only.
On whether or not we should do it or not, Dave.
But he's talking about getting rid of the trash.
All right, I see what you're saying.
And that's not germane to resolutions. Yes, sir.
May I make one comment? I appreciate your advice, Randy, but if this motion carries tonight, what I say next Tuesday won't make any difference, and if it doesn't carry, there won't be a meeting next Tuesday.
Any other public comment? We'll move on. The first resolution, number 97. Whereas William Crumpton has submitted his resignation as constable for the town effective May 31, 1993, therefore move that the town clerk be authorized to immediately advertise for this position. Resumes and/or letters of background and qualifications should be received in the town clerk's office by 4 p.m. July 6, 1993, and to be open that evening at the 7 p.m. town board agenda preparation meeting. I'll move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Pat, will you poll the council?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. The next resolution, number 93-98, whereas 6 windows remain in the town highway garage that are original and are badly in need of replacement, and whereas quotations were received from 2 potential suppliers, therefore move that the quotation of Fulton Builder Supply Company, Inc., in the amount of $2,062.08 be approved. I'll move it.
Second.
Under discussion, the windows, some are plexiglass. They have been, can be broken open. They leak heat badly in the wintertime. There are drafts from them. I can go on. They're in terrible shape, and they really are in bad shape and need replacement. If there's no further discussion, Pat, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway?
Aye.
Councilman Rose?
Aye.
Councilman Smart? Aye. Councilman Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor McCollum?
Aye. I apologize, I started on the last page of the resolution and skipped 2 on the previous page, and we'll move back to resolution number 93-95. Move that the town of Volney has no objections to the renewal of the following licenses with the New York State Liquor Authority of Miller Brewing Company located at Post Office Box 200, Route 57, Gate B, Fulton, New York. That's brewer's license number 94-2, OSWE D 00119 101, brewer's retail beer license number 94-2, OSWE BR 00119 102, and wholesale beer license number 94-2, OSWE C 04889 103. I don't think anybody would dare vote against this. I'll move it.
I'll second.
You gonna do it? Pat, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway?
Aye.
Councilman Rose?
Aye.
Councilman Swear?
Aye.
Councilman Ward?
Aye.
Mr. Vice Mayor?
Aye. The next resolution, number 96, move that the public officials liability coverage policy that expired July 7, 1993 be continued through July 7, 1994. Eastern Shore Associates to be the agents of record. Premium cost is under review. I'll move it.
Second. For information purposes, Eastern Shore wasn't able to get the figures to us quickly enough to include that in the resolution. However, there are only a couple of places in the state that even sell this type of coverage, and obviously we'll go with the cheapest one. If anybody has any question about it.
Do you think it is roughly the same amount as it was
They
last
did
year?
not expect much premium fluctuation at all, only minor.
And I think it was, what, $2,700 last year?
Yes, they expect it to be very close to last year's figure.
Has that been moved and seconded? Yes. Any other discussion? Pat, will you poll the council?
Councilman Ridgway?
Aye.
Councilman Rose?
Aye.
Councilman Swear?
Aye.
Councilman Ward?
Aye.
Vice Mayor?
Aye. Now we'll skip to resolution number 9399. Whereas it is in the best interest of the town to have the land leased from the fire corporation utilized in the most effective manner from land use and related cost standpoints. And whereas recognizing that such land and recreation planning and design can be most efficiently done by professionals specializing in such services, and whereas a letter dated April 30, 1993 has been received from Kotz and Associates outlining the scope of their services, and whereas the town board, Randy Bennett and Charles Smart, met with Anthony W. Kotz on June 8 and reviewed the proposal, therefore move that the proposal of Kotz and Associates as outlined in their letter of April 30, 1993 be approved in the amount of $4,500. I'll move it.
Second.
For discussion, please.
Yes?
Okay, first of all, I think I'd like to just take a moment and go over the history of this park for those that don't know how it started. When I took office, we formed a recreation program, and before too long we realized we had no place to conduct a recreation program. It was done at the school here in town, but at that time there was renovations going on, we couldn't use it, so we were stuck without a place to conduct the program. So what we ended up doing is having some field trips, which turned out to be very successful, and they've continued ever since. But we still wanted to have some type of a park that we could conduct daily activities in for the kids in this community. And realizing that we had a tax base that could sustain it, an industry, compared to Palermo, which has no tax base compared to ours and no industry, and they have a very nice park that a lot of us in this town envy, we proceeded to start some plans of our own. And following the same procedure that they did, which was to form a citizens group, which we did. We had close to 30 members at one time, and we discussed it, we made the plans. I worked on the drawings for it. We tried to keep this low tech and as minimal cost as possible, and we weren't looking to impact the taxpayers of this town with this park. We wanted to do it all as much as we could by volunteers and donations from industry and contractors and so on. And we were very close to succeeding with that when this town board took office. Now, since then, you have dragged your feet for 2 years on this issue, and the momentum that we had going with our group has pretty much dwindled. There's only a handful that's left now because they're frustrated with the efforts that have been put forth by this current board. Now, I called Mr. Savage, the supervisor of the town of Palermo, today to find out how they proceeded, and they did basically the same thing. They designed it themselves. They put their own efforts into it using town equipment, using county equipment also. The county chipped in, which I think we should get, since we do host their incinerator and landfill and never received any benefits for that. They also have $12 million for the tax-exempt property in this town that we don't receive anything for. So I don't think it'd be too much to ask for them to donate something towards our park. They built the town of Scruples Park in its entirety. at our expense. But in any case, I just want to make a few comments on your comments. Jim, first of all, you talk about volunteers. If you're talking about our highwaymen volunteering, or are you talking about volunteers other than that? Because I know you were upset with the fact that I was trying to use volunteers. You were concerned about the liability of other contractors who have donated their time to come in from doing any work. And I know, Dave, you expressed the same concern. Are you referring to volunteers from our highway department or volunteers from outside?
I was talking about volunteers from our highway department primarily.
So when they have time, when it's politically correct, we may see them over there. Is that right?
How do you respond to that?
Well, that's what I'm referring to, and I think that's part of the concern everyone has. The other thing you mentioned, a rough drawing. I do not call that a rough drawing. It's got a scale to it. It has all the details laid out. Now, maybe it's not professional, but I'm disappointed that you gave this to that firm before they had a chance to draw up their own plans. I'd be surprised to see if it wasn't very close to this. I was contacting Henry Wilhelmy a few years ago about the very same thing you contacted COTS for, and if you had a meeting with our group like you should have had, maybe I would have told you that, but we never had a meeting. You went and did this on your own. But he was also up in that price range, and at the time, I didn't think the town could afford that. I mean, we're talking $9,000 just to get started here, and by the time we ever raise the money to do anything else, it's going to be several years, and we can't wait that long. I don't think it makes sense. And Mr. McFarland, you said the initial plans were for adults. That's not correct at all, or at least not the initial plans that we had as a committee. The initial plans was for a multi-use type thing for adults, but mostly for the kids of this town for a daily program during the summer months. And that's what the thing started out as. But like I say, you've destroyed the momentum the last 2 years. I think the reason for all this high-priced stuff is to get the price tag up there where it's not even practical anymore, and we just drop the whole issue. And I'm sorry to see that happen, and I hope in the future, maybe with a new town board, that could change. But I do feel that it could be done with the local residents. I do feel it can be done with contractors. Northern's already been generous enough to donate the blocks for the restrooms, the clay and the sand for the baseball diamonds. We had contractors offer their heavy equipment to come in there. Bob Kirping said that he would do some work. He already did the road. We've got a fence in there. We've already invested, what, $15,000? I mean, come on, let's get going on this thing. We don't need to spend $4,500 to do this. And all we're going to get for that, Jim, is just here's his words. He's going to give us for $4,500 the best utilization of the property. Well, we know what we want. We know what we want. And then from there, for another $4,500, we're going to get some specs and detailed plans that we could put out for bid. Now we're up to $9,000. He also said that he usually gets 10% of the total cost of the project. So if it's $10,000 or $200,000, there's another $20,000 that comes into play. I don't think we can afford this. We are not a wealthy community, and we can't afford that luxury. I wish we could. I'd like a nice park. But we do have industry, we do have a lot of contractors, and we did have a group that could have spearheaded that effort. And maybe we can get them revitalized again and proceed with this project if you choose to do so. But I don't think this $4,500 is going to get it. Those are my comments.
I'd like to respond. First of all, I think that everyone here probably feels that Howard started recreation in this particular township. When I went on the board in 1980, there was no recreation program. It was totally defunct. There was nothing going on whatsoever. Bill Buck and I, we rejuvenated it. We went to the county. We got the county funds. We started a rec program. We had a summer program going during the summer. At that particular time, 1985, could have been somewhere around there, contact was made with Volney Volunteer Fire Department. A lease was secured on the existing park property, which I did myself. And we had that available for a ball field only. Going to put the ball field in there. We utilized the fireman's field for the recreation program during the summer. Following year, because of a problem with the laboratory facilities and visit facilities, we did not use them. Consequently, we came back to the municipal building, and our rec program was run in this building. We ran a total rec program during the course of the summer. As the years progressed, the park concept seemed to change, and it became much more involved than I had originally thought that was going to be when Howard went on the board. He planned a particular park. Well, when I started looking at the particular plan that Howard had drawn, I was quite concerned that it's very, very, very congested. If any of you have looked at the plan, you know that it is done by a person, and he admits is not a professional park designer. Now, you have many different problems that you have to deal with when you're dealing with designing this land utilization type of thing. One of them certainly is the most effective use of the property. Secondly, you have to look at the various different areas and what can go safely in one place and not in another. You have to look at the utilization of parking space. You have to determine, for example, that you wouldn't probably put an archery range so that you were shooting into the sun. You wouldn't put a baseball field in a particular way that the balls, if they were hit foul, would go into a hedge and so forth. And you need a professional to look at this particular park design and utilize the property most effectively and efficiently. Don't know if you read the paper, but Cox and Associates has been retained by the city of Fulton to straighten out their park situation. So apparently, they have some problems in the city of Fulton with the way they've utilized their land. If we're going to do this, I firmly believe that we have to begin with a plan. Now, the $4,500 is the beginning. And I firmly believe that we will have the land moved by the fall. We will be into this. We will start working. We will be designing the park. Now, in talking with Mr. Cox last night, Mr. Cox very pointed out that to utilize a baseball field, it takes probably close to a year for the grass and so forth to be usable. If you're going to design a field that is a regulation field. I assume that we're going to do this. If we're going to do this, I assume you're going to have some groups that are probably going to want to use that field to play softball or whatever. I assume you're going to want a regulation field. I assume that you're going to want to have the areas as effectively and efficiently utilized as possible. And I believe that that's what's going to happen here. And I seem to get the feeling people don't want to spend this money, but yet if we keep going, I don't see how we can continue forward if we don't have a particular plan. I do not feel that the plan that Howard designed is adequate. I do not feel that it takes into consideration many things that a professional will point out that we don't know. I believe that $4,500 would be very, very well spent, and I would say that that's the way that we should go, and I firmly believe that.
I also would like to comment, Jim, that it was said, and I think it's a very valid statement, and I think anybody that thinks about it will also feel it's very valid. And that is that any mistake that an amateur or person who was not qualified to design such a park, that an error could cost a heck of a lot more than the $4,500 or $9,000 that you would pay a professional to properly design and build a facility. It costs a heck of a lot more to change it. And that is what is going on, and Mr. Cox has brought several examples to our attention. And very honestly, I feel it would be money very well spent.
I'd like to remind you, Mr. McFarland, that this building was designed by a high-paid consultant, and do I need to tell you all the problems we've had with it?
No, you don't have to tell me at all.
I would point out, Howard, that the doghouse was designed by you, and I could list.
And there's no problems with the plans, Jim.
There certainly are.
No, there was problems with the constructor, with the contractor that Byron went and paid before he was finished, so we had nothing to hold over his
By law to pay.
No, we were not. Not until I signed the final papers, and I did not do that.
Well, the design, and that's the way, that I believe was your design, Howard, so that's...
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sound design.
All right, gentlemen, all right. Any other comments? Any other comments relative to this resolution?
Yes, I do, because after listening to this gentleman the other night and reading through this, there are things, yes, $4,500 would be spent, but I was talking with people today, and they said to me, why, he says $4,500 would buy a lot of the play equipment for the kids to be playing on. Why are we worried? Baseball field, or softball field, volleyball court, and basketball. Well, I thought this was going to be designed for the kids in the town.
Well, that, I thought, is what the committee is to determine, what the priorities are, what is to be done.
Yes, but we singled out in phases. I grant you this, all this plan is to do the whole site. General plan. This right here is to look over the whole site. Was there 6 acres?
Your wish list, so to speak.
Right. And where everything should go, basically. Then, if you go any further than this, when you get into the hard-drawn specs, is when you get into drainage and everything else. But, you know, some people are saying, we want a playground for the kids. Yeah, I grant you it'd be nice to have a softball field. I don't think it has to be regulation where adults are the ones that are, you're talking about playing there. You're putting in a ball field that should be for the kids to play. Volleyball, anybody can use volleyball and basketball. But they want to know, why isn't it being set up? And the first main concern that is not, is playground equipment.
Jeff, are you saying then that you'd like to have just playground, that you'd like to go first step with playground equipment? What would you think of putting just playground equipment, right? Having just a minor design right outside the building where it can be utilized around here?
This is basically the situation we're talking about, putting adult facilities over there and the kids' facilities over here. Am I right?
I think,
This is what
Jess,
we're getting into.
I think, Jess, that we have a committee that is set up and you are going to meet next Tuesday to determine your priorities. And I think that's the way it should be done, whether it be playground or whatever. You are going to determine those priorities and what is to be done. Any other comments? Pat, will you poll the council? Excuse me 1 second. Yes.
Couldn't we say that we are allowing this, but if we have the initial meeting with Mr. Cotts and the group there is not satisfied with what we seem to be that we would receive, we could just pay him for the one evening and terminate the agreement?
We don't owe him anything. He's looking for business is what he's doing. We don't owe him anything. And we may or may not decide to give it to him.
He would be coming with the expectation that he would be starting the planning. Starting the planning. That would be, and we would have had to have passed this resolution for him to start his planning.
Why can't we call and tell him that if he'd like to come to one more meeting, satisfy our curiosity on
That will not change the price.
Right, I know, but we may change our mind.
I'm not sure anything would be accomplished by changing the date of the meeting.
I don't have a problem with the date.
But I don't think we can ask a man to come and start designing a park without an assurance that he's going to be paid.
Well, I don't think that meeting we had the other night was appropriate anyway. We should have had it when the public would have been there. I don't know why it was snuck in 3 days before he came. We should have had an announcement and let everyone come and hear what he had to say. Then maybe people were prepared to comment tonight too.
All that I'm telling you, I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to do that at the next board meeting, we'll have him here and have him respond to questions. If he so
You've had another month's gone by and no party proceeded, right?
Well, that's what you're urging right now.
No, I'm urging. Blame it on me.
Pat?
the council.
Wait,
I don't think anybody seconded it, did they?
oh, yes, Dave made, and I seconded. Not a public hearing, an information meeting. All right, let's just.
We have a meeting here, or what?
Pat, poll the council. Aye.
No.
Aye.
No.
Aye. Last resolution to be voted upon is resolution number 93-100. We have changed the wording of it. I'll reread it. Whereas the town of Volney volunteer firefighters have qualified in 1992 for the Service Award Program, and whereas some of those have also qualified and are eligible for buyback for previous year's service, therefore move that $480 per firefighter per separate eligibility be approved to initially fund the town of Volney Volunteer Fire Corporation Service Award Program.
I'll second it.
I'll move it, seconded by Jess. Any discussion?
No, the only discussion is, like Claudia said, they got a few things that they just got to iron out that weren't correct. Names, and back years of eligibility, things, it's just small things that they were in a hurry to get to us that they missed.
Well, that's why we changed the wording of the resolution so that those can be detailed and
I was talking with some of them yesterday, and then I got a call last night, and they said, we missed a couple of guys. I said, well, then, you better make sure your list is right, because this list has to be submitted. Once we go over next step in the year.
Okay. Any other discussion? Pat, will you poll the council? Aye.
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 Aye. That concludes the resolutions. Other new business.
I have one item, we talked about this building, and I know we just had new roof shingles put on, and I understand there's a problem still. Have we contacted the contractor that did that?
We contacted the contractor, we contacted, and he in turn contacted the supplier of the shingles, because they are under warranty. As a matter of fact, I talked to Dave tonight, the deputy building inspector, and they are hiding, for want of a better expression. And I've asked him if he would pursue it so that we could resolve the situation.
Do we need to get our attorney?
We may have to. By hiding, I mean we've contacted them. They've made various statements to us, said they would send us documentation of this and that, and we have not received it.
Because we already give them extra money for repair on the roof that was under warranty, am I right?
That is, that we were going to do, except I said to hold up the deck and until this whole issue was resolved. And I have a suspicion, perhaps I shouldn't say, and I will not say in public, but we have held up the check to that company that did the installation.
I don't see why we can't say the name A1 Roofing, because it was announced in the bid.
No, my suspicions of other things. It was April.
Any other business? New business? Any petitions to be brought before us? Yes.
Okay, I'm presenting a petition on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Group. We as a group have worked long and hard on the proposed park, and we've done a lot on this. We've done a spot canvassing of the Volney area here for 2 days, a week ago, and asked people to sign this petition if they agreed to. We have undersigned the petition, asked the town board to break ground immediately on the town park as promised. I present this to you on behalf of the Parks and Recreation Group.
How many,
There are 34 names, and we got 4 people who wouldn't sign
thank you. Public comment? Yes?
Yes, my name is Cynthia Tolbert, and I would like to make clear from the letter that I sent to you that there are 2 issues that we are concerned about. We are concerned about siting of cellular tower on Pierce Drive. Many people here do not believe that is a proper siting. We disagreed with the planning board's decision and took them to court, and the court agreed that they had not done their job properly. And that process has started over again, and we intend to follow it through. We know that that is the proper process, and we're glad to see that the town is going to follow it. Mr. Conley's given us assurances, and so have you, that it will be done properly. The other issue is related, but it is not the same issue. The other issue is the moratorium. We have asked this town board to protect the town of Volney from cellular towers in their zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance as it currently stands does not address this issue. It does not address it in any way, shape, or form. A 40-foot tower is the only tower mentioned in our zoning. We know the zoning ordinance is being revised now. The letter that I sent to you today from our lawyer talks about vested rights under general outline of New York law, and we have discussed this with our lawyers, and we know that this board has discussed it with their lawyer. We have discussed a moratorium with our lawyer. Our lawyer could prepare papers for you within 2 weeks, but she works for us, not for you. And unfortunately, you are supposed to work for us, but we're having to fight you instead. Aside, when their application went through for only 155 feet to ensure that that was adequate for them. You, people of this board, and people in this community have told us this is a done deal and we might as well go home. We do not believe this is a done deal. And those of you who are sitting on the board who will be running for office in the fall are going to find that out, maybe the hard way.
John Conway, and I apologize for speaking up earlier. I'm still not used to the conduct of these meetings. 2 things. You discussed the trash problem on the roadsides in the area. I think that's a common problem across the state as the laws for disposal are changing. One suggestion is that it might be possible to involve the community a little bit more in that effort at minimal or no cost to the town in pursuing some type of an adopt-a-highway concept. I offer that as a suggestion that I think has been successful in some other areas. Second item is on the moratorium. We keep getting apparently confused and bottled up with the issue of the one cellular tower that's proposed over by Pierce Drive and towers in general. It's my understanding that right now, adjacent to your property, under the current zoning, a tower could be put up in a similar manner to the one on Pierce Drive. It doesn't have to be a cellular tower, it could be a public radio station, what have you, okay? Our zoning is inadequate. I think the town board members have acknowledged that there's problems with the zoning. It needs to be updated, it's out of date. We're doing it now. All a moratorium does is provide you time to update the zoning so that you can regulate the towers, all towers in the town, any way you choose. That amount of regulation may become maybe minimal, maybe not much different than what we have now. But I'm very concerned after our previous public meeting where you heard a lot of feedback from the town about towers in general, not just the cellular tower on Pierce Drive, and discussion about a moratorium, that you weren't willing to pursue that option on some reasonable time schedule. It's our understanding now that, as Cindy said, you consider it a done deal, this particular tower, and that's fine maybe, but I don't understand now why we're not willing to address the issue of towers in general. Claudia, you said at the last meeting, why are we in such a hurry? There's no application on file for a tower at this time. Correct. But now there is, a week later, an application on file. And a month from now, there may be an application on file for another tower someplace else in the town. So we have to move on this issue, even if whether it's too late to have any effect on the tower on Pierce Drive is really irrelevant. That may be a subject for debate. There may be differences of opinion on that, but I'm confused with why you don't want to pursue a zoning change based on a moratorium for a time period, whether it's 90 days, 120 days, or 6 months, whatever time it takes to get the zoning updated to a standard that's acceptable to the town board, to the planning board, to the zoning board, to the public, to do your job in terms of serving the public. And I'd like to hear some feedback on that because the behaviors exhibited since the last meeting would indicate, as far as I'm concerned, you have no interest in updating the zoning in terms of towers, which I don't understand because you own land, you live in this town, and it could happen in your backyard right now. So I'd be curious to hear your position on that.
Yes.
My name is Colleen Scott. Howard, I wanted to tell you that what I asked you about at the meeting was a direct quote from Mr. Dunsmore. So you're either calling me a liar, or you are calling Mr. Dunsmore a liar. Patty came home very upset because of the comment that you and your wife made to her downtown. And I just want to clear this up because you can ask Mr. Warner, because he went over the next day and asked Roger about it.
Did you quote Howard? Yeah. You didn't quote Mr. Dunsmore.
Yes, but I told you Patty was upset because of what you said. You can't go around, Howard, saying things and making your own little agenda.
You have no idea what I said. You were
Yes,
there,
I do.
and I talked to Roger myself.
Are you calling Patty a liar?
I'm not calling anybody a liar. Come on, let's be real here. I presented to them my concern that maybe the planning board didn't follow some proper procedures and they better check it out before they proceed with construction, is what I said. I did not tell them I was personally going to tear their building down if they proceeded.
That's not what I said.
Yes, that's what you said.
You told Tricia that she had better watch out and not build that building because it probably wasn't legal and they would have to tear it down. And number two, I'd like to know, I understand that you people are upset about this tower. I probably wouldn't like it in my backyard either. But I want to know how many of you people sitting here own cellular phones? How can you fight against How can you guys fight against
a roof company like a Cellular One that just comes in and pushes people around. It's a done deal, and they don't really give a hoot about anybody else. So if you don't own a phone and you don't really seem to be informed about it, then I just sit down.
I just think that that's a valid question. You can't fight something that you own.
Jean Conway. I just would like to draw a parallel, I guess, between, and I hate to pick on the poor Dunsmores again, but the fact that they wanted to put in their indoor archery range and expand their business, and that was an issue that brought to light something that was sorely missing in our zoning ordinance, and that was a recreational business use. And when we did it for them, we weren't doing it just for them, we were doing it for the entire community. I would say this situation is analogous, wouldn't you?
I think that is where there is a misunderstanding between you and the board. What I thought you were asking, and so did other people on the board, was to have a moratorium so that the Cellular 1 tower could be stopped. We had a meeting with Dennis, and from all the questions that were asked of him, it seemed to be that that would not be a reasonable avenue for the town to go into for the board to do that. I don't want to speak for him because you slightly misquote a lawyer, they have a heart attack. You know, exact reasons for his positions from him. But I did not get from you that you were concerned about not just this, but also other towers, and what if this was not applicable to Pierce Drive, that you're still concerned about a moratorium for other possible projects. And that is what I was referring to, that we talked about at zoning update meeting. I said, well, okay, it doesn't seem to be applicable to the Pierce Drive problem. Is this something we want to have a moratorium so we can look into this about other towers? And nobody expressed an interest in pursuing it. I do not have a problem with looking into...
What about right now? You know, how do the rest of you feel about it? We have no idea. Between the last meeting and now, none of us have really been asked for our input, you know? We're not working together here at all. And it seems to me, it's only my perception, that you're stonewalling or hiding. That's my perception. I'd really like to know how all of you feel.
The legal advice that we got was that it wasn't appropriate to proceed for this Pierce Drive problem. I have no problem at all with getting public input and deciding if we want a moratorium in general, knowing that it probably won't affect the problem on Pierce Drive. It's two questions.
Well, and I guess that kind of brings us back a little bit. It certainly could affect the problem on Pierce Drive because, as Cindy read in the letter, usually a moratorium is enacted with an application pending. That's why usually a moratorium is brought up. Did you understand that when she read it? I think you gave them copies of the letter.
I gave you copies, and she's a lawyer, and she doesn't quote it either.
I suggest that you read this. The case law is also with it as well.
I've already read it, and Dennis gave us, I understood there was a time period, and that we have two different attorneys. I
With
believe
all
to
due
give us
respect,
that
is the town attorney. I understand this. This lady is a zoning specialist. I just want to offer that. I also have two other points I'd like to make. Claudia, you mentioned also, this has nothing to do with the tower, that you were going to get together with Chuck Sessler, Jan Cosell, and Faye Sanford. I'd like to know what the purpose of that meeting is and where things stand at this point.
Okay, it was basically, we need to decide exactly if there are any, to begin with, if there are any questions among the board members about any of the details of exactly how we should go through with using the data that we have collected, any legal ramifications, everything. Howard said he had some questions he didn't feel were answered. We are looking towards doing a realignment of all non-industrial parcels, which it's a semantics problem. A reval means you redo the entire town to a set different value. a realignment of a property class means that you are realigning this property class to make corrections of it within itself, but you are not redoing the entire town. The thing that would cause people's taxes to go berserk is if we reval and included the industrials. A realignment of a property class, which could be all classes that are non-industrial, would take out any inequities that exist between different individuals in the town without having this tremendous tax impact. It would just be minor adjustments by how each personal individual related to their neighbors. And so we're looking at the correct procedure. What seems to have been the consensus from different phone conversations that I have had with Janet and Chuck Sessler about this is to optimize the process for everybody in the town, because there are people that are building things right now, is that the meeting with Chuck Sessler's people take place near the end of the year, so everybody's construction for what is already existing and what has happened during the year, they get the opportunity to discuss with them, argue, or get explanation, or whatever the situation seems to be, of why they came up with that assessment. They would get that process, and of course, once you get past that, you would still be open to the grievance process, which at that time you would also know where everybody else's assessment stands. Right now, it's the equivalent of work papers on each individual place. You could try to compare yourself to somebody else, but what you don't know is that they're going to be able to successfully change their assessment. So then people would be able to go through the grievance process later to compare themselves to their neighbors once, so everybody would have two opportunities if they believe their property is incorrectly assessed, which of course means too high. Nobody complains if they think it's too low, before it would affect anybody's taxes from that action. So we want to make sure we have all the information, so every base is covered. We're doing things in a way that optimize the information to benefit the people. It requires no extra cost.
Okay. I guess, and my third point is, there seems to be a real lack of vision for this recreation plan. Yeah, you're putting the cart before the horse here. And are you looking to attract leagues to come to this town? Is that what you're looking for?
I'll respond to you if I could. First of all, on the park issue, no, we're not looking to do that. We're just looking for a place for the kids that live in this town to go and have some social activity. That's basically it. On the...
Doesn't sound that way.
No, I know it. The moratorium, though, that I read last month at our meeting, Claudia, does not mention Cellular One at all. It distinctly says, request a moratorium on communication towers. That's it. And that's all that was discussed at the meeting before with our attorney. Do you not recall Jim saying that he would not want to have to go to court to defend this town on this issue because they're going to single out Cellular One as the reason that we did this? And he didn't want to go on record as saying that wouldn't be his reason for doing it. And I said, well, I have no problem going to court and saying that it's because of cellular towers in general, not Cellular One. He was afraid that they would say that we're singling them out, and I was not. So I was pushing this issue at the last meeting for towers in general, not Cellular One. I don't care about Cellular One. That's already in the process. If we can hold it up and adjust or address that, fine. But I'm looking to address it in our zoning is what I'm looking for general towers. And I don't know why you keep bringing it up. I think you're trying to dodge the issue with me on this and dodge the issue with them. Okay. Enough said on that. The taxes that Jeannie just talked about. Okay, the reval, everyone was concerned about the impact, mostly because of the industry. Well, that's not going to change whether we do the reval. The impact from the industries is already going to affect us, is it not? No matter what we do now, that's going to already affect our taxes.
No.
What do you mean no?
No.
You mean build a brewery is not going to happen like we heard?
There is a difference between a negotiated lowering of someone's assessment.
I'm not talking about, I'm talking about the impact from milk and the other industries' assessment. That's going to happen no matter what. No matter what.
You're wrong.
Why am I wrong?
Because a total reval makes it so that instead of gradually over a period of time in stages, that the assessment is lowered, which of course means that other classes of assessments would pay a higher tax to make up the difference of these people who were overassessed, the industry that was overassessed. All of it would happen in 1 year. It does not allow for growth to eat up the difference so that you never really feel what your taxes would be.
If it doesn't occur, it will slowly be phased in.
It's occurring every day.
Yes, but it's going to be slowly phased in.
Right.
Okay, so it is going to affect it, maybe not all in 1 year, but over a 5-year period, I believe it was?
Well, that doesn't even take them down to where they believe their assessment is.
Okay, but it is slowly going to take place, correct? Taxes are going to change next year, no doubt, right?
Not significantly, but not based
Around
upon our...
5 to 7%.
Well, when are we going to know what is significant and what isn't? I saw the records from before, and it doubled everything. Now, that was based on an $80 million assessment for Millers, which we know isn't going to be $80 million, at least we hope not. It's going to be something higher for now, and gradually go down to the 80, 60 million mark in time. Is that correct?
It's not correct. What we are doing is negotiating this every single year based upon the circumstances that prevail. We have a very good neighbor in Miller Brewing, in that they are willing, very willing to negotiate on this issue every single year.
So what is the assessment for next year?
Right now, it has been dropped marginally.
What is marginally?
It will affect the school taxes and the town and county taxes for next year. I don't have these numbers right in front of me.
A ballpark idea. I know there were
Around 5 to 7%.
5 to 7%.
Yes.
Of their assessed value is going to go down.
Correct. That your taxes would go up.
That everybody's taxes.
You as I did not that your assessment solely was going to take the brunt of Miller's. No, I did not mean that.
I'm sorry your taxes are going up. Well, I'm not alone in this. I just want to make that clear.
You as the general humanity, Howard. Part of why this isn't affecting things and it is confusing things is part of what made the agreement with Miller work was semantics. Their assessment is based at approximately 10%. The average homeowner's is based at 5%.
When you say semantics, you're referring to not calling it the homestead option. Is that correct?
Yeah, just wait a minute. Now, it is illegal to intentionally charge people at different percentages of value. Okay? So, the way the agreement with Miller's was worked out is they will not concede that they are worth more than $60 million. However, the assessors are not willing to concede that they are worth less than $120 million. The way we are getting around this is that they're, okay, well, you're taxing 10% and we're going to get down to $60 million after 5 years. The assessors are saying, no, we're treating you fairly and you're going to be down to $120 million after 5 years. The beauty of it is they're both the same number. 5 years from now, we can work out the difference between the 60 and the 120 and whatever changes have happened in between. And at the same time, it's safeguarding the town because so much assessment is still left on Miller's. But at the same time, they are getting a reduction in their taxes. And yes, it will have an effect on the people in the town of 5 to 7% a year for 5 years, assuming no growth. If there is growth, then it will be less.
We're talking Miller Brewery. How about the other industries and the utilities?
Compared to Miller's, their impact is so minor, it's not anything to lose any sleep over. Of course, you want to have everybody's assessment correct and so you can keep the general rate down as low as possible, but it doesn't throw the taxes of everybody in the town as greatly as Miller, because they pay half the tax in the town right now.
So you're saying we can pretty much guarantee it won't be more than 10% next year, right?
From the break they were given. The choice being, if the assessors could not have worked out a deal with Miller's, they could have sued us because they were overassessed and gotten their full correction, all 1 year, not just down to where they'll be in 5 years, but perfectly down to where they should be. And they also could sue us for back taxes and get money as a refund because they were overassessed. That's why this is such a good deal. They're not going to sue. They're not going to try and get money back for being overassessed. And it's a gradual phase-in, allowing for growth. We are in one of the targeted areas for growth by the county. And I hope, considering the job situation, it's accurate that it's going to work, because it would be nice if there were more jobs available for people. And then that will make it so there are other parcels paying more. They're vacant land, for example, right now. Instead, they'll have commercial or industrial properties on them that will make it so that even though we correct Miller, the homeowner does not feel it. Time is on your side when you're in a situation like this. And what we're trying to do is maximize the amount of time, at the same time keeping ourselves out of where we will be having to make it up all at once because we are moving too slow.
And the bottom line is, you do not think that our taxes are going to be increased any more than 10% because of all this next year?
Correct.
I would say that was a fair statement.
And at the same time, we are maintaining a good relationship. The first conversations with Miller, they were very negative about the future, and because we are trying to be a good neighbor to them, they are even talking about possible expansion, which would make it so they wouldn't need as much of a reduction if they expand.
And then the other thing is, before the next tax roll is released, we are going to use the information from the data collection to equalize non-industrial property.
Yes.
You're confident that there's a way to do that by using semantics to sidestep the homestead option and not call it that, call it something else, and succeed with that, right?
Yes. You don't want a homestead. That would make everybody...
The homestead option does have something in it, Charlie, because the homestead option is an option where you can assess industries and residences different.
You have to drive all industry and all business out of town. Charles Smart. You were here, Howard, when they explained the homestead option. Well, it has nothing to do with it. They're not connected.
Yes, they are.
No, it's not. No, a homestead option, no. A homestead option is an assessment method which is chosen and used by the town, and...
That separates industrial from residential.
Absolutely.
Wait.
No, it doesn't separate.
It separates residential and non-residential.
Right.
That includes Howard Rose's commercial sign shop. That includes vacant land. That includes everything. Your taxes then would jump to take up for Miller. That's what we're
I'm just saying that's what we're trying to avoid. Isn't that what I said? We're trying to avoid the homestead option by using semantics.
Oh, no.
No, the homestead option is something that
Homestead option is totally separate and different.
The homestead option is not something that leaps out and grabs you. That's something that you opt to do.
Well, the city of Oswego is suing for something very similar, so you might want to check the case with them. The homestead option type issue with Niagara Mohawk and utilities up there.
This part of the agenda is public comment. I'd like to return to public comment. Dr. Kestner.
My name's Alan Kester. I'm glad to hear, Howard, that they let you see these new revaluations that's supposed to take effect. They will not. Faye Sanford, I believe it was Faye Sanford. He has a long face, gray hair. He was over here grievance day. I asked him specifically, may I see the evaluation on my house that is supposed to take effect next year, he said no. So,
Well, why is that? Why?
Well, I like...
We'd be able to see it, everyone would be able to see it.
Faye is concerned about doing things by the exact procedure so that we aren't having a problem. He has not had an opportunity to meet with Janet and Chuck to make sure that we're doing this in the right way. So he didn't want to do anything that would jeopardize that. That's part of what we'll work out at the meeting that we have with Janet and Chuck about exactly how we're going to handle everything.
So we'll get
Unfortunately, Janet...
in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, in the very foreseeable
Good, good. Tell Mr. Sanford that, okay? Tell Mr. Sanford that we are allowed to see it whenever we're allowed to see it. I appreciate that.
When did you ask to see it?
Grievance Day. I was right here waiving my taxes.
Oh.
Was I the only one here? I came in, there was nobody here. I come running in late because I was working and nobody was here. I started half an hour. I didn't know who everybody was on there. I told them that I had randomly selected 50 properties in the town of Volney from the 1987 tax rolls, which was where my house was before I bought it. And of these 50, in 1993, 24 had gone up an average of 10%. One had gone down. It was Faye Sandbridge. I know you don't believe it. It went down. He's an assessor, for those of you who don't know who he is. And the other 25 stayed the same. I appealed to them that the day I bought my house on the 1st of March, bad timing, bingo. The assessment comes out, and I called them up and said, they raised it 17.7%. And you've all heard this story. I know. I hope I'm not boring you. But some people haven't. This was what I told the grievance committee. I had this all written out. My taxes went up 17.7% in 1988. So I've been paying. You know, I've been paying 1993 taxes since 1988. And I don't mind. I just want the rest of you to do it. That's all. I want the rest of you to do it. So I agreed. I told him, look, I don't even want you to increase my tax from before I bought the house 5% like everybody else. You can raise me 10% like you did half of them. I don't know. That's fine. But don't raise me 17.7%. And then I told him what I thought my assessments should be. And about 3 days later, I got a real nice letter in the mail, forum letter, certain the state forum for replying to grievances, and it said denied. And then down below that it says for the following reasons, and it lists has about 27 boxes there. I mean, they got a lot of reasons for denying your grievance. I'm looking and looking and looking and looking. I turn it over and look, and nothing's marked. I looked at who signed it, and I thought, well, you know, this guy is I don't know what they call them, grievance committee member or something like that. They're brought on board for 1 day, and we pay them money, and they make a decision, and then they send me a letter, and then what do? As they're out 25 days, go to small claims court. I don't know if Miller's going to sue you or not. I am. What I really want to know is, can this assessment board or whoever these people are, who's over them? Who can I appeal to and say, what's the reason for denial? Or should I just go to small claims court? I just want to thrash this out. Give me a reason. See? Now, if I go to small claims court, and they may throw up their hands and say, well, they didn't give you a reason, get out of here. I don't know. But I think there's some due process that's lacking here. To do, and I think there's due process that is part of this whole controversy down to the tower. I have another thing here. Claudia, you were commiserating that you ask questions and don't get answers. Welcome to the club. We ask questions all the time. We get on it. I'm not going to turn in my... I don't have car when I bought it, and it's nice to have, and I use it. I must say, the reception downtown Fulton, I can't call my wife. It's out Mount Pleasant Church. I get lousy reception. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna make them put up a new tower just so I get better reception. But on the other hand, I don't want to do away with my phone either. I think that. Can anybody answer my question about what do I do? Do I just go to small claims court well, where's it? Somebody's supposed to tell me why they do it, or you don't have to do that.
We can't tell you why you were denied it.
You have to call the chairman of the grievance board. Apparently, maybe a carbon slipped out or something.
They still functioning as a... I don't think it has a nice name there. Okay, well, I'll check that out. You know how I feel about this town park, and but I feel that Russ Perot's always saying that that we're the boss, the people who are the electorate are the boss, and that's neither here nor there. But I voted for Russ Perot to get the attention of these other people, Republicans and Democrats, that there are some people here who aren't happy with what the Republicans and the Democrats are doing in Washington. But he does say nice is that he thinks, now this may be all PR for all I know, he's not the president, and I think if he was the president he probably wouldn't be saying these egalitarian things. But he does say that the elected officials are the servants of the people. That's why you're called public servants. I was a public servant when I was in the Army. I considered myself one, okay? But I'm not in the Army anymore, so I don't have to. But you should be doing what we want. And these people here, we're missing Seinfeld. I mean, how many people in here watch Seinfeld? Okay, that's a good one. I want to miss Seinfeld because we came here tonight because we are interested in what happens in our little town. We're interested in what goes on in the government. We're interested in how our money is spent. We're interested in all those things. And we come here and we tell you how we feel. Okay? And you say 3-2. 3-2. 3-2. And as I said before, why should I come to this meeting next Tuesday and listen to Mr. Cox? Why should I do that? There's no reason for me to do that. He's got my money now. He's got my money. And I think that, I don't know if you were caucusing up there to try to, table this or whatever. I had hoped that you were. I hoped that you were, but I was wrong. And, well, this isn't the first time that you, as a board, as a whole, have not responded to the wishes of the electors.
He has to go to small claims court. What do I have to do? What do my neighbors have to do to get a moratorium on the construction of new towers in Volney? That's what I will. So we can vote on this tonight.
I don't think that even requires a vote.
I will.
Need a resolution? We have a resolution.
No, we don't.
I will not have any resolution on which our town attorney does not agree that it is in the town's best interest to do. And until he says that, we are not going to have a moratorium. Why isn't he there?
That's right.
He was here at a meeting and which we did not. He put it this way: there is a possibility that if you pass a moratorium, you can have legal action brought against you by Cellular One. That is a possibility. It is a possibility, and until he makes a recommendation that we pass a moratorium, if his recommendation is not to, I will I would follow his recommendation.
Excuse me, Mr. McFarland, Bob Humphrey. I was at the zoning update meeting. I was sitting next to Dennis Hawthorne Jr. as he explained the whole issue of moratorium, the whole question of priority over the applicant, which there was no application at the time, as Mrs. Smart seemed to indicate. There were no applications at the time. There were no towers before the board. And it was clearly stated by Mr. Hawthorne that it was up to the board to take action, that it was totally your prerogative to do what you wanted to do, and if you are more concerned with a suit from Cellular One than from your own constituents, then I don't know what you're sitting up there for.
As a elected official, I have equal responsibilities. The town has a large lawsuit against it because proper procedures were not followed a couple of years ago, and we may be a big loser in that. So I have an obligation both ways. And if our town attorney recommends that we can proceed with the moratorium, then we can. But I don't think he will.
You're telling me right now that he told the board that he recommended against the moratorium?
No, I did not say that. What I am saying is, if he recommends that we can proceed with the moratorium safely, I will go along with that.
What was his recommendation? I was at that meeting.
You can state it if you wish.
Mr. Warner, I'd like you to speak up as well. You were the person running the zoning update meeting. What exactly was Mr. Hawthorne's recommendation to the board?
His recommendation was, it was up to the board.
Thank you.
The biggest thing I always brought up about this towers was because we were dealing with public utilities. To clarify, is it a public utility or isn't it? And it's still questionable. The state attorney, and I got his name because I talked to him, Peter Colino, and Hawthorne was supposed to talk because there's, of course, according to Mr. Colino, that because one case, it is not considered a public utility. And they can be, these communication towers can be restricted where they're going to locate. And I haven't heard back from either party on the decision, but the state attorney wanted to talk to our attorney and explain it to him because it was lengthy on these towers, communication towers, not just cellular, communication towers.
Mr. McFarland, I'd like to know why you won't vote on a public hearing about a moratorium. If you are so honestly concerned about the citizens, why will you not tonight set a public hearing so that all citizens of Volney who are interested can come forward and tell you how they feel? If Mr. Rowley wants to come and tell us why the tower should be allowed in Volney, fine. If you want to tell us why you think they should be allowed anywhere or nowhere, fine. Why can't you vote tonight on a public hearing? It does not guarantee anything. It does not guarantee a moratorium. It does not stop Cellular One. The only thing it gets is the public input. You've told us you cared about that, Claudia. You have had a month to find out what the procedure is for that. You told us that at the last meeting. You told us that you could find out about how to enact a moratorium. You've had that same month, and we're still sitting here. You can't even agree to listen to the public about this issue.
A misunderstanding about the way this would happen. We need the exact resolution that we would want to pass before you have a public hearing. If, however, you just wanted a public meeting that was not a public hearing, you can have that before you have the resolution. But to have a public hearing that would be part of the ordinance process with the town board, you have to have the exact resolution passed that would become the ordinance before you have the public hearing.
A month ago, we asked you for that. Why haven't you acted on it in good faith? Why have you sat there for a month? You know it's legal, you know it can be done, you know 86 people in this town want it, and you haven't done anything, except wait until tonight to say, we're sorry again, we can't do it because we don't have it written down yet, and we can't hold a public hearing because it's not proper procedure, and mumbo-jumbo us to death. Why?
And now we have an application, and now we still don't have our lawyer at the meeting. You're right. Why? What do we got to do, hit you over the head?
Power in their backyard. They're not listening. Smart.
Yes, John Conway, what do we have to do to get the resolution you need to have a public meeting?
Hearing.
Hearing.
Would
What
you
do we
like our
have to
attorney
do?
to
Do we have
draw
to
it
do
up?
it?
Board.
You want an answer, or you just want
We want to move forward. We want to move forward. So what do we have to do?
It seemed to be the question that you were answering. Apparently, there was a misunderstanding.
Okay.
All right, will you let me finish? That there was a misunderstanding, that the only issue you were concerned about was to do this, to do something about time. From the conversation with Mr. Hawthorne, it didn't look like that would accomplish what you wanted.
There was no
It
power
was-
application.
Wait.
Will you wait? Please.
I think we're ready to give you what you want. Just give us a second to figure out what you want.
All right, now, if you are concerned about a moratorium on this issue in general, that is a different question. It's a totally different question, and I think it's totally appropriate to meet with Dennis about drafting something, not expecting that it would do what your original request was.
How are we
That's a
going-
different thing.
How are we going to proceed? And I don't know why we keep putting the caveat on it with the understanding, it doesn't matter whether it applies to the Pierce
Yeah, I don't
tribe.
understand that.
Let's forget about Pierce
Well,
tribe in this
that
regard.
is the impression that we were left with after you spoke last month, that you only were concerned about it if it would do something about Pierce
We all
Drive.
understand each other now, Abel.
Fine,
Let's move to the next.
and I don't see why it needs to go on.
So how do we proceed? I mean, what has to happen? I want some accountability and some commitment here to progress.
Right now, the process is that there is a new application, and it's going to go...
No, that's the issue. No, that's not the part.
How do we move to get a moratorium?
Close the public comment, let us do this, because we can deal with it.
We're willing to help, whatever we gotta do.
If we can conclude the discussion on this subject, but we will get together with immediately with our attorney Dennis Hawthorne and discuss a moratorium and how it will affect the future of in the community of Volney.
Isn't that what you told us at the last town board meeting?
At the last town board meeting, you were urged to attend, excuse me, at the last town board meeting, you were urged to attend a meeting of the zoning update committee. And we were going to determine whether this was a public utility or not. Since then, we have received a communication from our lawyer stating that it is a public utility. And we must be governed by the rules and regulations as applies to public utilities, which basically says they can locate anywhere they want to.
At the zoning update meeting, Dennis Hawthorne said that the term public utility was basically just that, a term, and that communications towers can be regulated. Did he or did he not say that? Did he or did he not say that?
that they can be regulated?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, he did.
Same time you got yours.
Well, since then, I talked to the state again, let's talk to this attorney, and he said to have Dennis, get with Dennis on this, and I don't know if Dennis got in touch with him or not. But before that, I talked to a Stan Polonsky, which I mentioned at the update zoning meeting, where he stated that the Public Service Commission, to be a public utility, a public commission has jurisdiction, public utilities. They do not have jurisdiction over these communication towers. They file with the DEC, New York State. They do not file with the Public Service Commission. If you're a public utility, you have to file with the Public Service Commission. And in the same token, they go and get with the DEC to find out if there are any problems. And right now, I'm still waiting for a clarification on public utility through the attorney, but according to what I've been told, they are not. They can be restricted where they're going to go.
It doesn't matter whether, you know, we don't really care if they're a public utility or if the next guy who comes in is a public utility.
John, I was doing this to get something in our update on our zoning, what is and what isn't public utility.
But even if it is or isn't, you can still be regulated. So, I mean, that's,
Well,
we're just looking for progress here. I don't think it's germane whether
There's
they're.
a misunderstanding, and there's no problem with looking into this if you realize that it probably won't affect Pierce Drive.
Listen, I was on the board when we did a moratorium, and Howard can verify it, Jess can verify it. It's a very simple procedure. I cannot believe there's so much dialogue over how to do it. If you have any questions of how to present a moratorium, Scott Chatfield is an expert in zoning and planning. He goes all around and teaches it. I called him and said to him, how do I propose a moratorium to the town board in order to prevent any more constructions? And what we were debating at the time was a proposed trailer park coming in, because there was so many unregulated information that we were getting. I called him and I said, what do I have to do? He said, basically, you just have to state why you want a moratorium, what is its purpose, and you have to give a time period of how long you want to have the moratorium. But the key was you had to have a council person present it to the board. As a council person, I have that authority. I went through the steps, I followed the procedure, I brought the resolution to the board, it was discussed on the floor, and it was a proposal for a public hearing for a moratorium. Because at that time, Larry Rowley and there was people...
You're not even listening to this lady. You guys are comparing notes. These three are passing notes. These two don't get to see them. You guys are whispering among yourself. This lady is recognized, and you're not paying attention to a word she's saying. What is wrong with you people?
I second it. I hope you watch this, so you can see how ridiculous
This entire procedure is, and how foolish you people look.
Okay, I'm really explaining it for the citizens, because I know these people never listen to anything. Anyway, the whole purpose of a moratorium, you give your purpose, you state your time, you present it as a resolution. Howard knows, we went through this, we got in a big debate, because I wanted it, Larry Raleigh was in the audience, they didn't want it, but there was enough people, pro and con, it was kind of an even thing. It got voted down. It was against me. Judge it very personally. However, it was done, and it was not a big procedure. It does not matter whether you're talking about cellular one, future, you're talking about a moratorium to stop something, to make a decision. That's all you're doing. You're not trying to prevent anything. You're saying, whoa, we don't have anything written in our zoning. Let's be intelligent. Let's stop and look at this. Okay, maybe they did file an application, but the reason they filed the application because they knew that this was going to be coming up, okay? And then you have a responsibility to look at this. And I keep hearing you say, well, you want to stop cellular one. But let me just read the resolution that was read last month. Whereas a group of Volney citizens have requested a moratorium on communication towers in the town of Volney until the Volney zoning ordinance is revised with regards to this issue. And whereas the Volney ordinance does not currently address towers of this nature, and where the town of Volney's ordinance is in the process of revised. But therefore, be it resolved that the Volney board approves this moratorium for a period of 4 months. It's all spelled out, just like it's supposed to be, or until the Volney zoning ordinance update on this issue is completed. It just gives you 4 months. They're asking you to stop things for 4 months to take a look at it. That's all they're asking you to do. They're not telling you to stop, sell your tower, sell your one. And if it affects this one, so be it. And if it doesn't, so be it. But what they're asking you is to stop construction. And that's basically what a moratorium does. You people are making this so difficult, it's absolutely unbelievable. And if Dennis Hawthorne has got something to say, these people pay his wages. Bring them here and let them tell all the people.
Yes.
Charlie Storm, simple for the record. The reason that was voted down last week is because it could not be done last time without first holding the public hearing. It could not legally be voted on. Howard and Jeff did vote for it illegally, and the others voted against it, but that was the reason given at the time.
But the others promised
Against
to look
that.
into it.
There
Here
was
we
a
are again.
proposal for a public hearing on the moratorium. That's what the motion was for.
Then they can vote on a hearing tonight, can't they, Mr. Smart? Nope, they can't do that either, I'm sure.
Move to close public comment back into regular session.
Second.
Aye. This is, motion's on the table, it's been seconded.
Did you get that, Pat? Motion to close the public comment and return to new business. That will be our next resolution. That will be resolution number 93-101. Poll the council, please.
Aye.
No, there's people that still want to talk.
Aye.
No.
Well, the I'll say aye.
I have a motion. I have a motion. I move the town board meet with Dennis Hawthorne to draft moratorium regarding towers in town of Volney. Public hearing to be held when legally possible. As a second, I'll speak to it.
Second.
The objection and my concern right along has been the fact that the issues seem to be the towers in the Pierce Drive area. And the point now is that I firmly believe that we have constantly been misunderstanding each other. I am going to say that I didn't realize all of these things, and I believe that we can do this, but I want to meet with Dennis. I want to draft the moratorium. We're going to draft it properly. At such time as we can hold a public hearing, we'll call a special board meeting. My intent.
I will do that motion in black, Jim.
Mm-hmm.
That motion is to draft a moratorium. I would like that, and I will vote against it unless it reads consider a moratorium.
If the intent of consider is to, after legal counsel, approves or disapproves, if that's the intent, if the council says it's a legitimate action, if your intent is simply to give him that option, then I will consider that an editorial change and would not need a second. Is that your intent?
Yes.
I do not. I will change the motion. And that's an editorial change. So it's all written out, Pat. You don't have to worry about it. To consider.
Will you read it again, please?
I move that the town board meet with Dennis Hawthorne to consider a moratorium regarding towers in the town of Volney, and a public hearing be held when legally possible. If, and I guess I have to then consider it. It's okay.
How about a time frame?
What's the rest of that?
It's public, I move that the town board meet with Dennis Hawthorne to consider a moratorium regarding towers in the town of Volney, and and also consider a public hearing to be held when legally possible, assuming that he has said that the moratorium is something that we can legally do and should do. That's the intent. That's what
We can't guarantee that till we talk to Dennis to see.
Wait, you said that your attorney would take 2 weeks to do it. We can't tell. I don't know what the time frame is. We will meet with Dennis as soon as we, when do we want to meet with, when will we meet with Dennis?
Let us say within a 2-week period, Jim.
Yes. Within a 2-week period.
Would this be a public meeting, Mr. Ridgway, that the entire board and the lawyers, the public entitled to come to that meeting, listen to the discussion? We have a quorum.
Marie, I'm not sure you're right. We're talking about a possible, I don't know. It'll be public.
It'll be noticed.
Any discussion? Hearing none.
Motion is, I move the town board meet with Dennis Hawthorne to consider a moratorium regarding towers in the town of Volney and consider a public hearing to be held when legally possible, meeting to be held within a 2-week period from today. Meeting with Dennis Hawthorne. Meeting with attorney to be held within.
It's been seconded. Any further discussion?
Since they're within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Meeting with attorney to be held within a 2-week period.
Back, poll the council.
Aye.
I'd like to see a more aggressive action here, but it's the only progress we're making, so I'm going to vote aye.
It is the appropriate action, Howard. Aye.
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 How about that, unanimous?
Is there any further public comment? Hearing none.
I have one last thing I would like to just make. Okay, there's another issue coming before the voters of the whole county in August, and that's the water district issue. Now, I think I mentioned at our last meeting that we should have our legislator Bill Buck here to discuss this with us and let us know. I know he supports it, and Claudia supports it. I'm pretty sure I don't support it, but I'd like to hear all the angles to it. And I think it's appropriate that we have him here at our next meeting before this vote to discuss it with us. Other legislators are discussing it with their respective towns. And I'm going to make a request to him personally myself, because I know you have a lot of success in that, Dave. And hopefully we can get him here at our next meeting.
Let us, I'm going to back up, we've gone out of order a little bit here. I'd like to make a motion that we return to public comment. This is just simply for the record, cosmetic. Claudia Smart seconds. Pat, will you poll the council?
Aye.
Councilman Rose?
Aye.
Councilman Smart?
Aye.
Councilman Warner?
Aye.
Supervisor McFarland?
Aye. We've already did public comment again. I'd like to announce future meetings. There will be a zoning update meeting June 17. Bill signing and agenda preparation July 6. Regular town board meeting July 8. I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I so move.
Second.
Pat, will you poll the council?
Aye.
Thank you for watching Volney Town Board meeting. Tonight's meeting has been brought to you by video donations by Shannon's Hot Dog Stand, Smart Insurance Company, and also Volney Fire Department for the videotape donations to help keep this service working and bringing